I was one of the very few white people in that theater. I'm just gonna say it. It was very, very funny. I walk in there and I'm like, God damn, I'm the only white person in this theater. And then I saw there was like a couple in like 2 rows in front of me, and I was like, okay, cool. So Carson, have you ever played any of the Elder Scrolls games before? What is your experience with them?
No, but I've been recommended those games several times on several different occasions. I know they're like, no, maybe I'm thinking of Dark Souls, but I'm like, I know that like, isn't the game like extremely difficult? Isn't it the game where you have to like keep rolling?
No, that's
constantly?
Dark Souls. You're thinking of Dark Souls.
I'm thinking of Dark Souls. Okay, well, I do know what Elder Scrolls is. Like, I have heard of it.
Well, you've heard Skyrim, right? I'm surprised. I'm honestly kind of shocked you've never played Skyrim.
It's just not one. I've seen other people play it, not like on YouTube. Like I've generally been. When I was in high school, I went over to people's houses, and I would literally watch them play it. So it's not like I have no experience at all with Skyrim. I do. One of my closest friends, their favorite game is Skyrim. So anyway, but Elder Scrolls. Let's pretend like I have no knowledge of this at all. Go for it.
Well, so the only reason I bring that up is because one of the biggest things that happened this week, I was actually in my client's office. I was in the office on Tuesday, and I knew that it was going to happen. And I should preface this with saying I have played a little bit of Elder Scrolls Online and a little bit of Skyrim. I've never beaten it, but I have played a little bit of Skyrim. But the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, which is Elder Scrolls 4, the one right before Skyrim, it's actually like at the time, or I shouldn't say at the time, but it's like honestly one of the more popular, like almost as big as it's almost as big as Skyrim. It's like absolutely beloved. But obviously because it came before Skyrim, and Skyrim's like freaking 10 years old right now, it's an old game. And so recently on Tuesday, they announced a remaster of it. And when I tell you that this game looks, so it's Unreal Engine 5, which is like the highest freaking quality game engine that you can make a game in. It looks unbelievably gorgeous. I think it's what Cyberpunk Edgerunners was made in, is Unreal Engine 5. I could be wrong. No, I am wrong, because CD Projekt Red has their own proprietary game engine.
Wasn't Red Dead 2 made in Unreal Engine 5, or am I thinking of something else?
It might have been. I believe it was. I believe Red Dead 2 was. Okay. But anyways, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because one of the craziest things, again, this is a hugely popular game, like hugely popular, and they shadow dropped it. Which, if you know what that means, it means they announced it and dropped it on the same day. Which, granted, this has been the worst kept secret in the industry. We've known it's coming for a long time. We've even seen clips from, like, we've known this game was coming, and we kind of suspected a shadow drop, but they announced it and dropped it on the same day. And so I'm sitting in the office. I pull up the Steam store on my phone, and I'm like, oh, it like actually released. Tell me why a Tuesday, the announcement came at 11 a.m. Eastern time. By 12 p.m. Eastern time, by noon, there were 98,000 people playing this game on Steam alone.
Christ, Carson, what the hell?
By the time I was done eating lunch, there was over 100,000 people playing this on Steam alone. Right now, if I checked, I probably should have had this pulled up. Last I checked, there was 170,000 people playing this game, like, as of right now, as of we're recording this. And that's just on Steam. This released on Xbox because obviously Bethesda is owned by Xbox, who's the creator of the game.
Right.
It's on Xbox Game Pass. And so there's probably 500,000 people playing this game, and it dropped unexpectedly out of nowhere. This has to be the biggest, at least in terms of player count, like shadow drop of all time. This is one of the biggest games to ever shadow drop in history. Like, this surpassed the player count of Marvel Rivals within hours of it dropping.
That's actually kind of insane.
It became the third most played game on Steam the day it was announced and released.
That is actually, I was there for the launch of Marvel Rivals too. Like I played that day one. I was so psyched for that game. So I personally have a hard time believing that.
Well, so it didn't surpass the peak player count of Marvel Rivals. It surpassed the active player count at the time, which I believe was about 150,000 people.
Gotcha.
I can actually pull it up really quickly because I have it saved on my phone.
It just
So
it
right now
makes me
there are 171,858 people playing the Oblivion Remastered right now. It is the
okay.
fourth most played game on Steam. Marvel Rivals is above it, but only by 9,000, barely 9,000.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that gets taken over at some point. The
And
only
it's
reason
crazy.
Rivals even has a chance is because it's free, though. I will also say that.
Well, that's the thing. This is a game. Excuse me, sorry. This is a game that costs $50, which actually is a really good deal for what you're getting. But it costs $50 and it's a single player game. All the top 3 games are all multiplayer games. You have CS:GO, Dota 2, and Marvel Rivals. All multiplayer games. You have to play multiplayer on those. Oblivion Remastered is a single player $50 game competing against 3 free to play multiplayer games, and it is almost beating them.
It makes me really wonder what Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be like in October.
Well, here's the thing. So one of my friends brought that up. Grand Theft Auto 6, if you did not know this, is not releasing day one on PC. It is releasing on
Yes.
Xbox and PS5. I don't even think it's releasing on Nintendo Switch 2. I believe it's just Xbox
It's
and
yeah.
I believe it's no, I think it's old and new gen for both Xbox and PlayStation, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that though.
I think you're wrong about that. I don't think it's old and new gen for GTA 6. I think that game is going
So
to be
you
too big to run on old gen.
So you basically have 2 consoles that you can 2 places to play this on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous. I know that I'm pretty sure that 2K has done this before, the publishers of GTA, where they don't release. I don't think GTA 5 dropped on PS or on PC day one. I don't know how long it took, but it is. I am very curious to see what GTA 5, like GTA 6's release is. It's going to be the biggest media drop of all time, obviously, but it's not a shadow drop. It
Well,
is
and
a
yeah,
game
like
that's been in the like
this is a planned drop. This is a very, very hyped drop. I mean, this if you remember GTA 5, I remember this specifically. I wasn't one of these people, but I remember like 2 years after the game came out, like looking back on it and then seeing like all these different accounts and reports, there was a massive there was a massive amount of time within the first week where people called out of work and skip school just so they could play that game.
the world is going to shut down. And here's the reason you know this is because the GTA 6 drop announcement trailer, it was leaked and it came out early. And
Yeah.
still, within the first 24 hours, do you remember this number? Because I have this tattooed into my brain. How many views that video got in the first 24 hours?
How many did it get, Brandon?
It was about 171 million views for the trailer, just on the GTA YouTube channel, not including places like IGN and other places. 171 million views in 24 hours. It became the fastest viewed non-music video of all time on YouTube, surpassing a Mr. Beast video, which was the one who held the record previously. And that's just the announcement trailer that came out early on accident.
That's insane. But look, and that honestly, going back to Elder Scrolls, because I do think that that's it. Like, I'm using GTA 6 as a reference of just that's a planned launch, and the fact that Elder Scrolls even got to where it is now on what you're calling a shadow launch is very, very impressive. Like that is hard to do. And again, it's like you said, it's the worst kept secret. It was also the world's worst kept secret that GTA 6 was coming out, but here we are.
True. That's fair. That's very fair.
But I think that for what I do know about Elder Scrolls, that is a very big achievement for them to be able to just launch the game cold, go into it, and then to get the player count that they actually have. I mean, that is really, really cool.
I mean, they've already officially announced Elder Scrolls 6 as well. They announced it like 4 years ago with like a quick like cinematic. Elder Scrolls 6, given what we know about just the Oblivion remake, Elder Scrolls 6 is going to break the internet almost as much as GTA 6. Like, Skyrim is also one of the biggest, like, you want to talk about games that the general public knows about and loves, it's Skyrim and it's GTA 5. Funny enough, Elder Scrolls 5 and GTA 5, both fives in their series, and ironically enough, both with very anticipated sequels being their 6th game coming up.
Sure.
But anyways, that's enough of that. Hello, Nimrods. What's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, where your two favorite Nimrods talk about all things nerdy. My name's Brandon, aka Parrotfish, here with
Carson, aka Juggernaut.
And today we're going to be talking a lot of Star Wars. I am very Star Warsed out today. I mean, I typically have the hat and I've worn the bomber jacket before, but there's a lot of Star Wars stuff that's happened. We had Star Wars Celebration, which we briefly touched on last week, but I have a full list from StarWars.com of all of the actual official announcements. We're going to cover those. We have the 30th anniversary, or it's the 30th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 3.
20th, not 30. Good
20th,
God, not 30.
Thank you.
Good God.
20th.
Good God, not 30. Oh my God. Please
20th
no.
we're not that old. 20th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 3. And we just had the first 3 episodes of Andor drop it. Oh my God, I have so much to say. I know you do as well.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, Carson, how you doing? How you been? What's up with you?
Oh God, dude. This week was an emotional roller coaster for me with movies and television, man. We gained a lot. We lost a lot.
Yeah.
I think you know exactly what I'm referring to when I mean we lost a you know, we got a hole in one. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. I'm going to give this right here, right now, because we keep forgetting to give it. And I feel like this is a week that it is very, very important to give this. Everything we talk about, if we mention a property, we'll be getting straight into spoilers. So if we mention a property, we'll do our best to mention the property and then we'll get into it. But if we talk about something, we are going to spoil it, and you are not going to want these things spoiled for you. I can promise you that if you have not seen it, what we're going to talk about. So yeah.
that is definitely your warning, especially for this week's episode. But no, man, I'm good. Look, it's actually been a very, very pleasant week. It's finals week for me. So, I'm just slowly cruising through, crossing classes off the list and getting things done where I need to get them done, but pretty pleasant. What's new with you?
It's just been another week. We're recording this on a Thursday. I feel like we've never recorded, we've recorded like one Saturday morning when we originally said we were going to record these, because I'm gone this weekend again. And then I know 2 weeks from now we're recording on, I believe, another Thursday or Friday because you're gone. So it's a fun journey. But we're here. We're happy to be here. I'm happy to be here, at least. This is always probably the thing I look forward to the most, other than the stuff that we talk about, like actually watching and consuming it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use that as a segue because typically I would kick it over to you, but we spoke about this beforehand. I have a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about in general. This might be one of our longer episodes. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with what I've been consuming instead of normally asking what Carson's been consuming, because other than the anime that I have, the things that we're going to talk about, we've both watched. So we'll talk about those together, and I'll just talk about the anime before kicking it back to Carson to talk about the things that we've watched together.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do what I typically do, and I'm going to pull up my notes, and I'm going to talk about this in order of favorite to least favorite, in terms of anime. The only one that I will not be talking about that I spoke about last week is Devil May Cry. I did finish Devil May Cry last week, and I only watched 1 episode. Now I've seen all episodes 1 through 8. The only reason I'm not talking about that this episode is because I'm actually going to post a 3-minute review of that on the social platforms. I'm actually going to have to record that after we're done filming this, and it'll go up immediately. It's like already 10:40 at night. So it's gonna be a late night.
It's gonna be 1 a.m. before we're done. Christ.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
So I will not be talking about Devil May Cry, but I will talk about the other ones. I'm gonna breeze through some of these, probably more than normal. So starting with my least favorite, it honestly continues to be Lazarus. I think I'm pretty sure it was my least favorite last. Honestly, I'm tempted to drop it. I thought I was alone in my dislike of this, because I had seen some like clips come up of people talking about it, and for some reason, a lot of people seem to be a lot higher than I was expecting on it. Now, granted, it is a good looking show. It does have a really cool soundtrack. The action is really good. Don't get me wrong, but the story just kind of, I don't know. It's really cool concept for a story, not a super interesting execution of a story. I thought I was alone in that until I watched the otaku's I can't remember the name of the podcast, but there's an anime podcast that I listen to. I listen to a lot of podcasts, by the way. It is the Otaku's Anonymous podcast. I was listening to their latest episode where they also talk about all the weekly anime. They also are low on this show, so I'm very glad that I'm not alone. But anyway, I don't even know if I want to get into a synopsis. It was kind of just boring. Stuff happened. Like the the show moved forward plot wise. Like we go to Istanbul and we meet a grandma who makes this really good baklava, and we play basketball with this random person in a homeless shelter. Like I don't know. Like I really just I think I'm going to continue watching it. I might stop talking about it on the podcast honestly after this, and might just post my thoughts on Instagram and TikTok because I just don't have a lot to say. I didn't even post a TikTok about it this week. I replaced it with a different anime for this week. Or no,
Sure.
we replaced it with your Last of Us review. Actually, I think your
Yeah.
Last of Us review might just replace the Lazarus, and maybe I'll bring it up again on the podcast. I think this is what I might be doing. I'm thinking about this now. I will continue to watch this week to week, and if I have something interesting to say about it, I'll bring it up. But this is just an anime that, like, again, looks good, good soundtrack, decent action, but like,
Sure.
I don't know. I'm not invested in the characters. The
You've
story
lost
kind
the
of
heart.
left me hanging. Yeah,
You've lost the heart for it.
Yeah, like it's an ensemble cast, and I barely I remember Axel's name, and I'm looking at my notes right now. I don't even think I wrote anyone else's name down other than Dr. Skinner or Axel, the main character, because I just don't care about them. I really don't. And I get that we're only 3 episodes in, but I can name you all 3 of the main characters from To Be Hero X, My Hero Vigilantes, which are the 2 other anime I'm watching this season that I'm absolutely loving.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Like if you have an ensemble cast and I can't name anyone, like granted, like Solo Leveling, you only know Sung Jin Woo, the main character, but it's also mainly just a solo like show. Like yeah, you have other characters, but they're not the main focus. The main focus is Sung Jin Woo. It's called Solo Leveling. He's solo for most of the time. With this show, they're building it out to be an ensemble cast, and I just don't give a fuck about any of them.
Sure. No, that's a big issue with certain shows that, you know, they try an ensemble show and it doesn't work as well. I'm trying to think of the specific show that I'm thinking of that it was a show called there was a show that came out in 2021 I watched, and I thought it was funny. I thought the concept was interesting, but it flopped, and it was called Reboot. And it was about like this. It was a Hulu special show, and it was literally like this comedy show about rebooting an old sitcom. It was kind of like you know how like the I don't know what the term is. It's like a real life telling of something that's like happening in our world. Meta commentary is probably the best way to say it. It's meta commentary on reboots and whatnot. but it absolutely flopped, and it was a massive ensemble cast, and it just didn't work because you didn't care about any of the characters that threw at it. And it's funny considering the cast was actually like really good. Keegan Michael Key, Judy Greer, Johnny Knoxville, Caleb Worthy from Austin and Alley was in this. I'm like, what the heck? What happened with this show? They had so much promise.
See, that's the other problem with this show. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to the voice actors at all, because I don't know, like, this, like, I guess I don't want to place blame on anyone, but their voice acting performances are kind of flat most of the time as well. Like, I feel like I'm also not interested. Like, there's two things that can make a good character: good writing and good performance. And I'm not getting either of those. Like, the performances just feel flat. It feels like sometimes they're just reading the lines as opposed to performing the lines. And then we're getting like tidbits here and there about the characters, but like, I don't know, I just don't feel invested. I feel like the second I lost interest, like fully, and lost hope in this show was really in episode 2, when it was revealed that Axel had been in prison for 8, like he had got the 8 life sentences just because he broke out of prison a bunch of times. Like, I was talking with a friend about this, who's also watching a lot of the Cecil anime, so I get to talk about these things with him. And he was like, "Oh, well, like, that's cool. It like builds his character and things like that." And I was like, "Look, I'm not saying I wanted him to be an axe wielding murderer or a terrorist, but like, I don't know. It's just kind of a lame, like, it doubles every time he. I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem inspired. It doesn't seem interesting. Maybe I'll change
Sure.
my mind, but I feel like this might be the last episode of Lazarus I talk about on the podcast if it doesn't grip my interest again. I'll continue watching it. I'm gonna watch. I think it's only 12 episodes. I can suffer through 12. It would be not 12 more episodes. It'd be like 9 more episodes. I can watch 9 more episodes, but I'd rather spend that time that I would be talking about Lazarus and talk about my other 2 anime that I'm going to talk about on the podcast. And honestly, I'm not going to rank these 2. I know I said I'd talk about them least favorite to favorite, but these 2 shows, I just really, really enjoyed these episodes. So I'm going to start with My Hero Vigilantes. I think if I had to rank it, maybe it would be below 2B Hero X, just a little bit. But my God, dude, the character dynamics, it's another ensemble cast. You follow Pop, you follow Knuckle Duster, and you follow Nice Guy or
Yep.
Crawler or Koichi, his actual name.
Right. As you mentioned, yeah.
Again, I can remember the character names of these ones because I actually enjoy these 3 characters. I'm not even looking at my notes right now, even though it might look like it. I just remember these characters because I actually enjoy them. We actually, and I posted
Sure.
this on the socials, but we had a scene where Koichi comes home to his like rooftop apartment or whatever. Not a glamorous thing. He literally lives in like a tiny little hut that like is like on the top of a building. It's weird. I don't know. But you get a scene where he comes home like after school, and he's like absolutely just like, oh, I need to like kick up my feet. I have to go work my job because he's like just a normal dude. And Knuckle Duster's just sitting on like his sofa. And he's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, like I let myself in. And he broke his window. And it's like,
Right. Right.
dude, come
Mm-hmm.
on. And then you're like, you get a good chuckle out of that. And then there's a knock at the door, and Pop comes in, who is she's like an idol, but she's also just like a normal high schooler. So she like shows up to his front door in like a school uniform, hair a mess, and she's like head down, like defeated from high school. And then they come in and they're just like chilling. They're just chatting and like riffing off of each other. Like it's just I was like actively having fun watching these 3 characters interact with each other. And I wish I had the voice actor's name for Koichi pulled up. Mainly because this is his first leading role in a show. The English, again, I watch English. The English voice actor for Koichi is killing it. I love his performance. And this is his first leading role. So I just want to give a shout out. Again, I wish I had his name pulled up, but he is killing it. I'm gonna jump around a little bit, but that was my favorite part of this episode, was just watching the dynamic of these characters. one thing that was interesting is it's kind of like a villain of the week story. Obviously there's this big overarching thing of the drug trade that's going around. I think I've talked about this on previous episodes where there's this drug going around called Trigger. And you inject yourself and it basically enhances your powers temporarily, but also makes you lose your mind. So you become an instant villain. And so there's that big overarching story, but for like right now, just these 3 episodes in, it's kind of been a villain of the week. Every single week, every single episode, you have a different person inject themselves with Trigger. We have to defeat them. One of the interesting parts about this villain is the other ones were kind of just like either like bullies or druggies or like not great people. This one was this little kid, basically. I don't know how old he was, but he was like a little kid who all he wanted to do was meet Pop because he's a big fan of her. Because again, she's an idol. She's like internet celebrity, and he just wants to meet her. And she has a concert. She's like, oh, everyone get in line to shake my hand and meet me, like for free. And he's like, oh my God, like I have to get in line. I can't wait. So he injects himself with Trigger. So he turns into he actually turns into an eel. Because his quirk is he is an eel, I guess. I don't know.
His quirk is that he's an eel.
Dude,
what
My Hero
hell?
Academia quirks are weird. They are weird.
Sure.
But anyway, he turns into an eel and like chases Pop around, but he doesn't want to hurt anyone. He just wants to meet Pop. And it's kind of telling that story of like, I guess, the curse of being a celebrity from Pop's perspective, while also that story of, oh, I'm a really big fan. I just want to meet you. Like, you're my hero. You're my idol. You're my role model. Like, I just want to meet you.
Sure.
And they tell the perspective from like both, in the sense of, oh wow, like I get why, like everyone has that celebrity that they, like, minus Tom Holland. I've never got to meet Tom Holland. I really want to meet Tom Holland. I talk about it way too often off camera. Carson knows this.
Unfortunately, I know a lot more than I care to admit about you and Tom Holland. And if Tom probably found out, he also probably would feel very uncomfortable.
Look, I'll out myself here. I had so many photos of Tom Holland saved on my phone that, on iPhones where it like recognizes people,
it saves
and
the face. Oh my
it like
God.
saves the face. I had so many photos of Tom Holland on my phone. It created a profile for Tom Holland.
It's like me and WWE wrestlers. I just have so many pictures of them now. It has like, I have like a file for Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. There's one for John Cena randomly there. I'm just like, what the heck? What, you have a problem when you get to that point.
Look, man, I'm not creepy. I promise. I do want to meet the man, though. I just gotta say. But anyway, you can sympathize with him. Obviously, what he's doing is bad. Like, don't turn into a villain. But you can sympathize with him. But then you can also sympathize with Pop in the sense of, look, I want to entertain. I just want to like entertain and give people joy. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for people to chase after me and idolize me and like claw after me. And that was just a really interesting, like, after the kid comes off the drug, he feels remorse and is willing to work with them so that he can give up, like, hey, this is how I got the drug, like this is what happened. He doesn't end up getting to do that because there was another incident with Trigger. And the interesting part about this is we actually get to see all the heroes from My Hero Academia, all the like number 1 hero, the number 2 hero, all the big heroes. They actually come in to stop this attack. Instead of it being Koichi, Knuckle Duster, and Pop like it's been in the previous episodes, we actually get All Might and Endeavor and all the superheroes that you know from My Hero Academia coming in here for a very quick like action shot, which I thought was like interesting.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. So I'm really enjoying this show so far. I love the character dynamics. I think, again, I've said this before, the style of it is very, very cool. I still have the problem where the action is just not dynamic and the movement's a little stiff, but I can look past that because this is very clearly not a battle show like My Hero is. It's very much a character-driven like story that also happens to be, hey, we'll have a fight here or there because we have these instant villains that we have to deal with.
Sure, right. No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's a lot more of a from the way you're describing it, it's a lot more of a character study of a show than so much of an action-packed
Yeah.
set piece of show. And I'm not saying the original My Hero Academia is, you know, a big action set piece the entire time, but it sounds like they're really trying to hammer home the character study of this show rather than, you know, focusing on the superhero wing, which is probably smart.
Yeah. It's focusing because, like, again, like, you have that scene in the beginning where most of the episode is them, like, in Koichi's apartment, or you get a clip of Koichi working at the supermarket, or Pop going to her day job of being an idol to make money. Like, you
Sure.
focus on that a lot more than the, like, 2-minute fight that you have with the instant villains, and I just love that way more. Not that I didn't
Right.
enjoy My Hero, it's not over yet, but of what we've gotten of My Hero. But I just really enjoy the, I guess, personal feel of Vigilantes, because you can't tell this same story with My Hero because the stakes are so much higher. But with this, where the stakes are lower, you can take the time to focus in on, hey, how's Pop doing? How has this situation affected her? Hey, how's Koichi doing? He has to go to work at the supermarket, things like that. Like,
Sure.
Deku, the main character of My Hero, he didn't have to go work at the supermarket, and you don't see All
Sure.
Might going and sweeping up the streets. Like, that's not what the show's about. But here,
Yeah.
you see that and you get that.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So the last anime that I'm going to talk about, and then I have one other thing I'm going to say before we get into the other things, is To Be Hero X. For a show that I admittedly kind of hated the first episode of, this has been the biggest 180 of a TV show that I've had in a long time. Because, oh my fucking God, dude, do I love this show. Holy shit, I love this show. It is such a fan-fucking-tastic concept. And one thing that's really interesting, is, so this is as I've mentioned before, this is a Donwa. It's made in China. And if you do not know this about China, China has something called the social credit system, where you're kind of judged on a social, like, level, and there's actually, like, numbers behind it. To Be Hero X takes that concept and turns it into a superhero epic. And it is using the trust level, as I've mentioned before, to determine how strong the hero is. And it's also influencing what the powers of that hero is. And in the previous episodes, we kind of built up to kind of establishing that power set, establishing kind of the fear aspect, the trust aspect, the power aspect. In this episode, we see the downsides to that. So obviously, we saw that with Moon a little bit, where Moon was restrained to only being able to teleport to Nice. In this episode, we get to see that, like, tenfold, and it is sad. Essentially what happens to this episode is there is the most unfortunately named superhero in the entire goddamn world. You're gonna laugh when I say this, and you're gonna laugh when I say his power. His superhero name is Firm Man. His superhero name is Firm Man. And the reason his superhero name is Firm Man is because everyone wants. Basically, the way he got his power is he was a firefighter who burst into a house to save a little girl, and the building was collapsing on him. So he held the building up from falling and had to stand firm to stop the building from falling. So now everyone wants him to stand firm and stop things from falling, essentially, I guess is the best way to put it.
What the fuck? What the hell?
Yeah, exactly.
I just, like,
So you hear that.
What
You hear that.
the hell?
That's a valid reaction. And then by the end of this episode, you're crying over Firm Man. That's the beauty of this show, is you're crying over Firm Man, because they have. So one of the funniest scenes in this episode is we're establishing Firm Man, because Firm Man's the number 10 superhero in this world. There's the ranking system of the superheroes, and Firm Man is currently number 10. And there's a scene where he's walking out of the supermarket and there's this speedster villain that he doesn't know is coming nearby. And so he walks outside and the speedster villain is moving at like fucking Mach whatever. He's super speeding. Furman steps out, doesn't even know the villain's there, puts his foot down. The speedster runs into him and eviscerates himself because Furman cannot be moved.
Jesus. Oh my God. What the hell?
Yeah.
It's like A-Train in reverse.
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh
that was
my
actually
God.
mentioned on the Otaku's Anonymous podcast that I was listening to. They literally said it's like reverse A-Train because it is.
Oh my God. What the hell?
So yeah, but the emotional crux of this story is that little girl that he saved actually becomes the villain of this story. But she's not a villain. And here's the thing. All she wants to do is remove the burden that saving her gave to Firm-Man. Because towards the end of the episode, we get to see the ramifications of his powers. And not only does he have to stand strong, the man cannot lay down. We see a clip of him. He has to sleep standing up because he cannot lay down in bed. He has to shit standing up because he cannot sit down on the toilet. Like, and it's played for laughs a little bit, but literally the man cannot sit down. The man cannot lay down. He has been standing strong for years. And the little girl that he saved feels so much remorse for what she did that she writes a story to try and lower his social credit because she feels so bad that she has done this to him. She doesn't hate him. She doesn't want to defeat him. She just wants him to be him again. And she feels that it's her fault for bestowing this giant burden on him. And you're sitting there like, oh my God, there's this guy named Firm-Man that he has the stupidest name and stupidest power set, but he comes with such an unbearable burden of responsibility. And this little girl just wants him to be able to lay down again. He even has a line like towards the end of the episode where he's like, it was like, oh, what's the first thing you're going to do? And he's like, man, I'm going to fucking sleep. I haven't slept in years. Like I haven't laid down in years. And you're like, oh my God.
Sure. Yeah. That well, and honestly, I can't say anything, negative about it because like I love wacky zany type of plots like that where it's just like overly ridiculous, but then they add like a bunch of character to it. I mean, again, I think that's The Boys on a pretty frequent basis. The Boys always throws these out there very like wild scenario plot devices, but within that they push character development. I'm like, I can't be too mad at this because they did this, but we had to sit through Huey dressing up as fake Spider-Man and sit on a cake, and you're like, what is this? What is this show?
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's just another like one of those types of episodes where it's just like it's weird, it's wacky, it's zany, but you appreciate it because it has a really good emotional value to it.
Yeah, and in two other things that I'm going to touch on before we talk about the other things that we watched together. Well, not together, but we both watched. Is we see in the penultimate like battle. It wasn't even really a battle. A bomb goes off, and there's this giant statue of Firm-Man that's made out of one of the strongest like materials in the world that falls down and almost crushes people. So Firm-Man has to stand strong and hold this up. But then he's kind of left with the dilemma of, do I stop holding up this statue or do I go save this little girl who's about to die in this other way, who's being held hostage? And you can kind of tell that he's sitting there like, I don't know what to do, because he actually, and it's funny because it leaves it up to interpretation of, oh my God, is he making the decision to save his own pride? But there's also the thing of, the only thing he's able to do is stand strong. He can't throw this statue down. He can't lay this. Literally all he can do is stand there and hold this statue. He doesn't really have a choice. The only way he's able to get that statue is Nice comes in and lifts the statue off of him because he himself cannot move the statue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way that Nice does that is actually really interesting because Miss J, kind of like the social media manager of Nice, actually starts live streaming the event and encouraging people to be like, hey, believe in Nice, believe that he can do this. And you can actually see Nice get stronger as she's live streaming this because the public is basically wishing him to be strong enough to help Firm Man. And you can see Firm Man actively getting weaker because the public is trusting him less because he can't lift the statue. And it's a really, really interesting, I guess, dichotomy of watching the public's trust wane in someone and that person get weaker, and watching the public's trust grow in someone and that person get stronger.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I'm happy you're enjoying it, especially because Lazarus is not,
No, yeah.
it's
Hey,
not.
I have 2, technically 3, and that's what I'm going to talk about here in a second, shows that I'm watching weekly that I am loving. So having just Lazarus that I'm not super enjoying, not a big deal. But Carson, before I kick it off and let you decide what we talk about next, even though I think I know what you want to start with, I am currently, funny enough, I'm staring at my One Piece display right now. I have a One Piece display on my shelf. I typically have watched One Piece in dub, mainly because, again, I have a struggle watching subtitles. I am sick and tired of waiting for the dub because I don't know when the dub of One Piece is going to release. I am starting to watch the episodes of One Piece. I'm catching up on I think I have 2 more episodes before I'm caught up. I will be watching One Piece weekly. And the reason I watch that, the reason I say that, is because I'm going to be posting my full One Piece episode reviews on the YouTube, TikTok, short form content. Because obviously I can't talk about it on the podcast because Carson is still watching it, and we'll talk about that next week most likely.
Sure.
But I will be posting my full weekly One Piece reactions on the social media platforms. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on One Piece on a weekly basis, go there. Because I will be talking about One Piece weekly. I am tired of waiting. I love One Piece too much. If I had the money right now, I would actually be getting tattoos of One Piece. I have 2 in mind that I will be getting one day. Both tattoos that you have not seen yet, but they are character tattoos. They're
Sure.
tattoos that characters in the show have, not just like
figured.
Luffy's face or something like that.
No, I figured.
But yeah, I love One Piece, so I'm watching it weekly, and I will be posting my thoughts. The first post will be my thoughts on the first 3 episodes that have already released, and then it'll be moving to a weekly One Piece episode review on the short forms. So keep an eye out for that. Anyways, I'm going to kick it over to Carson to start this off because I've been talking for a while. Carson, I think I know what you're going to want to start with based on the other thing we have to talk about, but go ahead, kick this off. Let me know.
Let's start with something that I never thought in a million years I'd be talking to you about, and that is Sinners. Holy shit, dude. Another mutual friend of ours went and actually watched it last night at the same time that I had watched it. But he went to like a completely different theater for me for whatever reason, and I told him I was going. Okay, sure, whatever. Holy shit. So far, this is the best movie of the year from a cinematography standpoint, a writing standpoint, just a story standpoint. It is masterful. And I like Ryan Coogler as a director. I think he's proven time and time and again that he is a very good director. I just have never seen anything other than maybe the first Creed movie in which I'm like, that was genius. Like, that was outstandingly genius. This movie did everything right in the sense of I mean, I think there's very little of this movie like had a misstep in, and I'd rather start with those because there's so few of them.
Honestly, I would agree because I have like 1 to 2 comments, and I don't think I mentioned them to you. I can't remember. I did
No,
mention them to another friend that I
no,
was
you
talking
hadn't to me.
to.
We
But
tried
I only
not to
have
talk
like
about this yet.
yeah, obviously, but I also have very, very few gripes, because this is not the type of movie I would typically watch.
No,
We
not at
should
all.
preface this. We both watched this in IMAX, the preferred
Yes,
viewing method of this movie.
yes,
It was a packed theater. I don't know about you. My theater was packed. I watched this
yeah.
about a week ago at this point. I think I watched it on last Thursday. No, I watched it not that long ago.
Sure.
And I was one of the very few white people in that theater. I'm just gonna say it. It was very, very funny. I walk in there and I'm like, God damn, I'm the only white person in this theater. And then I saw there was like a couple in like 2 rows in front of me, and I was like, okay, cool. Not that that made me uncomfortable or anything. I just found it kind of funny where I'm like, I feel like I'm like imposing is honestly what I felt like. I was like,
Do
shit,
you
I'm
feel like
imposing on a cultural experience right now. Like,
do
I
you
should not be here, even though I love the movie.
do you feel like the Haley Steinfeld of that audience, where you're just the
Yeah,
only person
honestly,
there? Who,
honestly, like, I only say that just because I found it funny. Like, obviously, I got no problem with that. The people next to me were chill. Like, we all had a blast. But like, I walked in there and I was like, man, this is. I feel like I am imposing. Like, I feel I'm gonna get side eyes. Like, what's this white dude in our movie? And I'm like, I'm
what
sorry. I just wanted to
what's
enjoy
he
the
doing
movie.
here?
I just wanted to enjoy the movie. I'm so sorry.
Well, and let me just say my few gripes, because I feel like we're gonna rant about how awesome this film is for a little bit. But I mean, the minor nitpicks, I think in the very like few first scenes when they're driving in the car to various locations, the screen when they're passing by the fields is just awful. Like it was so poor, and you could clearly tell that it was fake. I feel like
I
they should have
actually
taken a lot more time to develop the just background for that. It looked very fake, and I wasn't the only one who saw that.
I really didn't notice that all that much. Like, I think I like clocked it in my head. But to be fair, my recent reference for bad green screen is the Minecraft movie, and the Minecraft movie green screens were like comically atrocious. So I
It's
think when I saw
yeah.
this, I might have clocked it the first time, and then honestly kind of been like, well, moving on. It's whatever.
Well, and honestly, it wasn't so much the green screen; it was just the lighting that went with the green screen. It just seemed off
Okay,
compared to
that's
what was in
fair.
the back, and
That's
so
fair.
it just kind of
That's
made it
fair.
seem off. Again, not enough to
Very
like take
clearly
me
a
out of the
set.
story. When I mean it's a minor nitpick, I mean it is a minor nitpick. I would rather
Hmm.
overlook this and just chalk it up to a, oh, it's a whatever type thing. Um, some earlier scenes when the twins were first on screen, Michael B. Jordan as Smoke and Stack. Um, I think every now and again you could tell where they were digitally put in, and some of the ADR for some of their like early scenes, it was a little off. Like again, once they're in like the actual like location where the majority of the movie takes place, everything seemed really fine and seamless. It was just like those first few scenes, and it just slightly seemed off. But again, it's
Interesting.
minor thing. It's just all minor things. The only major thing I would say is probably I just wish that, because the main obviously villain of this film is vampires or a demonic demon of sorts, specifically a
Hmm.
vampire. I wish they would have, it's like the 80% fleshed out why they were already there. I wanted to maybe I just didn't fully understand why they already had been like existing, because they never really
Yeah,
gave a
you really
reference for
don't
why.
get. Well, yeah, because the main villain is Remick, played by
Yeah.
Jack O'Connell.
Jack
He's
O'Connell. Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
like, yeah, he is the like main villain, even though it's kind of like. So here's my thing, and I will say the only. I honestly did not notice the ADR stuff. It's actually going to compliment this movie on how I didn't notice that Michael B.
Sure.
Jordan was playing against himself. I thought, and maybe it's just because I focused more on the acting than the visual side, because I think Michael B. Jordan fucking killed it in this movie,
Oh,
playing
absolutely.
both Smoke and Stack.
Absolutely.
But my only gripe is I think the like very end of this movie, when you had the vampire stuff. I got a little bit lost. In just very slightly, I got a little bit like confused as to where characters were. That was my
So
main thing. Was who's
slightly.
still alive? My main thing was who's still alive and who's already been turned into a vampire. I don't know if that was just me. I got a little bit lost for a second there. I caught back up and kind of moved on. That was really my only gripe with the movie personally. Other than that, like this is not my normal type of movie,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I loved it. Like I think that, and so what I wanted to say is your complaint with the whole vampire thing. I can understand that, and I'm not going to disagree with you. I think it's a valid complaint, but the reason I did not really think that all that much, like it crossed my mind and I kind of moved on. I see the vampires not as vampires. I see them more as a representation for something else, which I think is
Yeah.
kind of what Ryan Coogler was going for. I don't want to put
No, and
words
yeah,
in
I
his mouth,
know.
but I feel like it's more of a like they're superimposing the racism and things of that nature and the KKK on these vampires so that they don't have to tell another KKK story and they can just kind of
Sure.
push the blame onto vampires. But it very much feels like that's like what they're going for, and that's why I was like, because the only thing you get is in this, honestly it was a little weird. You had that like one scene where the Native Americans come in and are
Yeah.
like, avoid that one. It's right when Remick gets introduced, and then they go off. And I honestly thought they were gonna come back, and they never did. And I was like, oh,
No.
okay, like whatever.
No.
So I guess that's another little gripe. Is like, okay, I get that the Native Americans are there to do a little bit of plot setup in the terms of, oh, avoid that Remick character. They don't say Remick, but they're like, oh, avoid that one. And then you find out like, oh shit, like they've already been turned, like whatever. But
Sure. No, it's again, all of these are really minor gripes in an otherwise nearly perfect movie. For people who call this movie perfect, I don't argue that with you. I could see this being a case that this is a perfect movie, which is very, very rare. It's funny. I walked out of the theater and I told the person who I ended up seeing it with, and I went, man, what is with vampire movies in the past 6 months and having them be like absolute 10 out of 10 perfection movies? Because we had Nosferatu in December, which is a very different type of vampire movie compared to this.
yeah,
But it's still like one of those things where it's like, what is with vampires and all of a sudden being like the best things ever for cinema? I don't understand it. But something I think I really appreciated about this film and what it did was how you really did care for the characters with as little like screen time as you were able to give them in the beginning. Like you give so much weight with the most minor things and in the shortest amount of time. And I think specifically that really gets highlighted with Haley Steinfeld a lot of the time, because her
I was
first
gonna
scene,
say
her first scene,
Cornbread. I think
cornbread
Cornbread is
too.
the one that gets like zero screen time. And when you find out that he gets turned, like the whole theater, like verbally reacted. They're like, oh, like when they realized that Cornbread was gonna get turned because he's just such a lovable dude that you barely get any screen time with, but you like actively care about because he's introduced like with his wife and there's that whole joke about like sex or whatever and
He's about to have a
then
kid. No, he's literally about to have a
exactly
kid.
exactly
It's so tragic. Cornbread's actually a much better example. I like that. That's literally all they give him for development is he's just a really chill, down to earth guy, and he's hired to be the bodyguard or the bouncer at this club for a single night. Or not for a single night. He's going to be the bouncer for a while at least. But
yeah
he was just preparing for his kid's future. That's why he was there. And then all of a sudden he comes back and you're like, don't let him into the building. Do not let them into the building. Which, by the way, oh my god, who's the person who plays the wife of the person who helped
I
make
have it pulled up here
what's her name?
Grace
Great
Cho
Grace. Oh my god.
Lee Hwan Wee the Asian like wife
Yeah.
to Yo, who's played by Bo Chow.
Oh my god,
Or
dude,
no, sorry,
why?
Bo Chow played by Yao. Sorry, I flipped that. But it's sorry. So it's Grace Chow played by Li Huan Li, and Bo Chow played by Yao.
There, oh my god, dude.
Her
I
death
let
scene like killed me, dude.
no,
Oh my fucking
it
god.
wasn't even her death scene. I let out like an audible like what the fuck whenever she was like, "Oh, just come in and take us." I'm like, "What?
Oh
Don't let them
yeah,
in."
yeah. No,
I was like,
that
"No."
scene caught me so off guard. That
I was
scene,
but it
like
makes
I
sense.
I didn't
It
like.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the
Oh
whole
my
theater
god.
like gasped. We were all like collectively like when I say this was a collective viewing experience with me in this theater, we all kind of went
Because we all know like all hell's about to break loose. All they had to do was survive the
Yep.
night. But to be fair, I also like because here's the other thing. Like this movie could have been just a simple like survive the night. Great, they survived it. What next type thing. The vampires more than likely still would have been around. They just would have gone and hid somewhere else in the dark where they're not in sunlight. And it's just one of those
Yeah.
things that you're like, oh, what, like where would the movie have gone if they didn't get in the building? So they obviously had to,
Yeah.
and it led to some pretty emotional moments, specifically with Cho and her character, that and having to kill her husband, who's this vampire
They died
corpse
together.
of. They died together. And honestly, I that's a good point I want to bring up, because the post-credit scene at the end of the movie shows that Stax and Mary as vampires go
Mhm.
on to they live happily together. They're still vampires. They're still the demonic presence that they are. But here's a question I wanted to ask you, because I've been thinking about this for a while. Sam really had no problem with them being there, especially after Stax basically tells Sam, like, hey, my brother made me promise not to touch you or to kill you. I'm just here now letting you know, like, you don't have long left. But I'm
Yeah.
here saying, hey, I've kept that promise. And then he's like, can we hear the banjo? Which that also got an audible what the fuck out of me when I'm like, why would you keep the banjo or the guitar? Why would you keep that?
Well, the guitar was destroyed, so I'm curious if they rebuilt, because that was the whole thing. Is he used the guitar to kill Remick when he bashes it into his skull, and you see the silver disc like slice through his
Right.
face.
Right. Well,
So I don't know if it's the exact same guitar or like a rebuilt replica or what it is, because the whole joke of the guitar is that it was some famous celebrity who I'm forgetting the name of. Like it was his guitar, and then it turns out there was actually Smoke and Stack's dad's guitar. That
well,
was
okay.
what
So,
they give
so
to
my,
Sammy.
but my question, what I wanted to ask was, do Mary and Stax still have consciousness of who they were before? Are they technically the same person? They just have all these things now, because like
No,
even the way
I don't
Mary,
believe
the way,
so.
but it's like even the way Mary said goodbye to Sam was the exact same way Mary would have responded. And I get that, even like, okay, when Cornbread was trying to get in the building, like he was still himself. Like, can I get my money? Can I go? This, that, whatever. Like, I get that they can act like they used to
So
act. It's just an
so
interesting thing to think about.
it's mentioned, and I think that, and I could be wrong with this, but it is specifically mentioned by Remick that they have their memories.
Gotcha.
So they have their memories, but that doesn't mean they are who they are. So that's like, think of it like this. Say your memories, not your consciousness, but your memories are put into a computer. Does that
Mhm.
computer, like a hard drive, become you? Or does that just like, think of it like a video game or a movie? Like it's just data on a stick that can be read off of. But my
Sure.
TV screen isn't Andor. It's not like Cassian Andor is not my computer screen. It's just his memories in a memory of him playing on the screen. That's how
Sure.
I view it. To where
Okay.
that's why she can react and say those things, but there is no humanity left in them, other than I guess maybe a little bit. Um, but
Like
I want to
I
give
feel like it's I don't know, man. It's just like one of those things of like because like I want to be able to like look at this movie and go, oh man, they did end up living happily together. They lived for eternity with each other. but I only want to say that if their souls are still their souls. You know what I mean?
I don't think they are. I think that is very clearly stated. Like, no, their souls are not their souls. Like, their souls
It's so
are not
tragic.
theirs anymore. It's just their memories. I'm gonna give
Oh,
a shout out because you mentioned Cornbread again. Played by Omar Miller, Omar Benson
mm.
Miller. Again, absolutely killed it. One thing we have not talked about is, dude, Miles Catton. I don't know how to
Oh
pronounce
my
his last name
God.
properly. I looked up on IMDb before we recorded this. This is
Nothing.
his first
Nothing.
acting credit.
It impresses the
Dude,
hell out of me.
I hope to fucking God that this man becomes like a superstar after this. I hope everyone is calling this man up for a performance. First of all, man can sing. Man can fucking sing. But dude can act up a storm. Dude, I don't know where Ryan Coogler found him, but my God, go
It
back there and
is
find more people, because fucking hell, dude.
it is hella impressive that he has never done anything before, and he just comes right in and he seamlessly is acting alongside Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld. Who played his love interest or the love interest? I've seen her before, but I can't remember her name.
It was sorry, I have the list pulled up
I know.
here. Why is it not? Oh, it's I'm gonna fucking butcher this. Tenja L. Jackson
Yeah. Okay.
playing
Yeah.
Beatrice. The
Beatrice.
way I know her, yes, Beatrice. The way I know her is obviously for me it's Loki. Loki season 1
Yeah.
and 2. She plays one of the TVA agents, eventually takes over the TVA. She was
Yeah.
also in Deadpool and Wolverine very briefly, being the head of the TVA.
Yeah.
But no, she kills it in this movie as well, obviously. But no, like Miles Canton, dude, fucking absolutely killed it as Sammy. I
It's
think like
incredible. It is
one of my
incredible that just out of
favorite
nowhere.
one of my favorite scenes in this entire movie that like I had so many favorite scenes from this movie. One of my absolutely favorite ones was the scene right before the vampires start happening. And that's when Sammy's giving his big magnum opus performance. And watching this in IMAX was an unbelievable experience
Yep.
because
Yep.
you see it's the most of the movie is shot. I don't know what like aspect ratio it is, but it's like a very like cut. Like you're not utilizing all the space of the IMAX screen, which I found a little weird because I was like, oh, shot in IMAX. And then that scene happens, you're like, this is why this movie is shot in IMAX, because that's when all the ancestors are coming in and you're going
Yep.
through the black history of music, which is like super crucial to music history, is
Right.
black music history. With you have rap, you have hip hop, you have the all the way back to the natives and things of that nature. And you're getting all of this
Right.
with Sammy's blues performance, which is more of not really even blues, it's more of an inspired blues.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like you see slowly it like expands, and then all of a sudden when shit's like it like collapses in on itself pretty quickly.
It is a masterful one shot that Ryan Coogler had just so expertly crafted. One shots are already hard as it is, and he has a lot of one shots in this movie. There's one earlier on when it's before, like even before they get to the main location, where it's the daughter of the Chose going back and forth between the stores to talk to her mom and
Oh
dad.
yeah, no, that scene was like it was a very good establishing like shot in
It
terms of
was,
it's one of the
yeah.
first scenes in the entire movie. You're like maybe 15 minutes into the movie when this is happening.
Yeah, no, and look, I just think that because I was going to bring up that scene too. That was just that's such an inspiring scene. That's going to be go down like if unless Coogler pulls another fantastic banger out of his rear end in the next few years, which I don't know if that's going to happen or not because I don't know what's happening with Black Panther 3. That's probably going to be like one of his magnum opus shots just for a long while, just because of how well it was done. The other scene that like it's campy, but they earned the moment was when Remick starts doing the Irish jig and all these people are singing
Oh my,
together.
I
You
love
get
that shot as well.
you get kind of a hint of it early on when it's just the three of them before Haley Steinfeld walks over and they're all singing the song, and it's like, you think, oh, they've rehearsed this, they're just singing a song that they've sung. No, they're all like they have a hive mind. They are all
Yep.
interlinked and connected to each other, and that's the scary thing that as the audience, but obviously Mary's character doesn't know. And I just think that when the big scene comes together and everybody's dancing, you have Cornbread doing his own thing, Haley Steinfeld, Stax, Remick, and they're all just dancing in this menacing thing. I was like, it's campy, it's horrifying, but at the same time, it is such an earned moment. This whole movie, the best way to describe it, and you've never seen this, but I would actually recommend it to you because it's in my top 5 favorite horror movies of all time. It is very reminiscent of the Evil Dead franchise. Have you ever heard of the Evil Dead franchise?
I've heard. Yeah, I've heard of Evil Dead. Yeah.
It's not vampires, but it's like a possessive horror movie where these kids in the first movie, kids go to the cabin, they read from this book of the damned, and they unleash a bunch of demons that start possessing the one by one these people in the cabin. The movies later on derail more and more from that, and now it's a horror comedy series that released in 2015, starring Bruce Campbell.
The only way I know it as a horror comedy. Like I didn't know it started not as a horror comedy. That's the only way I've ever heard of the Evil Dead.
It started as a traditional horror. Like the first two movies I would consider to be traditional horror, but even then they're still really good. But Sinners reminded me a lot of Evil Dead in just how campy it was, but how it like earned the campiness. Like it's not just forced. Like there also really wasn't. I don't actually even recall any jump scares per se, like at all.
Oh, there were this movie. In this movie, I jumped out my seat a few times.
Maybe I was more desensitized to it because I've seen a lot more horror.
Well, I think I've mentioned before, I hate jump scares. That is the way, like blood, gore, whatever, move on. Jump scares, man, I'll scream like a little girl, man. I'll jump out my goddamn seat. Well, like even when it was Smoke, right, who shot the two thieves in town, when he set off that gun, it was kind of unexpected, and I like jumped out my seat at that point. And then we have a lot more to talk about, so we'll probably wrap up the conversation on Sinners, but I want to talk about two more things really quickly. One, Hogwood, who is, I guess, the secondary villain-ish of the story. He's the head of the KKK section of this area. Doesn't really matter all that much to the story until you get to the end of the movie with like the whole like magnum opus battle. I just want to say I get that it's just acting. I feel really bad for his name is David Maldonda. Having to play a character like that, like obviously I hope he didn't enjoy it. But like playing a racist, saying the N-word, like playing that much, like when he died at the end of the movie, the whole theater erupted in cheers. I shit you not. My entire theater, almost like standing ovation, like erupted into cheers. Like
God, your
like,
response
obviously he's
really...
a hateable dude, but like I feel bad for actors who have to play characters like that because like it cannot be fun. It cannot be comfortable. Like I just, how do you do that? Like I guess he gave a really good performance, but fuck his character. Like terrible person.
I am making you watch Django Unchained at some point because DiCaprio plays a character in that movie.
Yeah, I know.
Who is the most despicable human being in that movie. But god damn it, if it isn't absolutely on point, dead ass hilarious. It's horrible, but he soaks up every moment. And you can't help but be so drawn into a character like that, but at the same time go, I should not be rooting for you in the slightest.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
this is a very
never
different thing.
second you're rooting for Hogwood at all. From the second he's on screen, you hate the man. He's spitting on their at their feet. Like he is a terrible, despicable human being. But like, my God, I feel bad for the actor. That's all I want to say. Only other thing I wanted to say really quickly, God, the scenes when Remick flies and like levitates into the sky, the tension that builds and the cuts that are made to kind of be like, oh shit, we know what happens when we don't get to see it. This movie is amazing. This movie is spectacular. It does so many things right.
Yeah.
I had so much fun watching this movie. Now I dragged that on
Shut
as long
the
as
fuck
I
up.
could.
Don't.
Because
You know what else was what else was dragged on long? Joel's death.
We said we were going to say the property before we spoiled anything.
I don't give a crap.
We're talking about The Last of Us. Obviously, that's the big spoiler for the episode, so I apologize. So if you have not seen the latest episode of The Last of Us, go watch it, but you already know what happens now. I watched this episode. Now it's been like 2 hours. I finished watching this episode about 30 minutes, maybe an hour before we filmed this, just because I unfortunately knew that Joel died in this episode specifically. I had not seen the clip or anything. I already knew he died from it's the only spoiler I have from the video game. But I have never dreaded watching an episode of television more than I have dreaded watching this episode of TV. So I put it off until literally I was sitting there and I had two options. It was watch this episode and then immediately set up to start recording, or lie to Carson and the audience and y'all and say that I watched this episode so that I never have to watch this episode and just skip to the next episode of The Last of Us. And I chose the honorable thing in watching this episode, and I fucking regret it because I texted Carson right after I watched this episode. I almost puked. I legit, I am no hyperbole, no jokes, nothing. I was heaving watching the Joel's death scene. Not from disgust, it's not overly gory. Obviously it's pretty fucked up, but it's not you're not seeing brain matter or anything. It's
not like the game.
Was tears, obviously, and literally hunched over, heaving from how just visceral it was. This is one of the most devastating hours of TV I've ever watched, because one, it is me sitting there going, I know what happens at the end of this episode. I don't want it to happen, not knowing anything else that happens. And then while I'm waiting for Joel to die, the settlement is getting absolutely fucking destroyed. I didn't know if Tommy was going to die. I didn't know if anyone was going to die. And I'm sitting there going, holy shit, are we about to get multiple character deaths? Luckily, we didn't. It was only Joel, which was still fucking devastating. And if Tommy would have also died, I think I would have killed myself. I don't think I would have fucking made it. I would not be on this episode right now.
Yeah.
But oh my fucking God, dude.
Well, thank you so much for listening to the Nerdy Nimrods podcast. We'll catch you next week. I don't really want to talk about this. I guess here we are. Look, I knew this was going to happen. Again, I watched the entire gameplay for the second game. I was there when people first discovered this plot choice. I was there to watch other people get upset, and I'm going to be here to watch other people get upset when I watch this episode with somebody who really cares about this show tomorrow, who has no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah,
it is extremely bold of a choice for not, I mean, a video game obviously, but for television. There are some shows that without spoiling it, because there's some shows I want you to do, but that I want you to watch, so I'll say that the title of them and give examples. I think but Sopranos does this a lot with its characters, where you follow a specific character, you become so emotionally attached to them, and it just rips your heart out. Breaking Bad does the same thing. I've seen things from The Wire that do the same thing. Obviously, Game of Thrones does something very similar.
Yeah.
If I'm genuinely being honest, if you didn't know about a certain thing that happens in episode 9, I don't even like talking about stupid Ned Stark. But if you didn't know about Ned Stark's death, I genuinely think you probably would be acting the same way now that you would with Joel. And I think for a TV show,
I was still pretty destroyed when he died, even knowing that he was going to die. So one thing I will say, because that's an interesting point that you bring up, there has only been one other character death in the history of television that I knew was coming and still absolutely fucking like destroyed me. And I'm not gonna even say the name of the show. But there is one character death in a TV show that I have watched that we will talk about one day, eventually.
Sure.
Maybe that's a little bit of a spoiler, but I will talk about it one day eventually, that I knew the character was going to die, and I will show pictures on the podcast of I took pictures of me when I watched this scene. Um, and that was only after I was able to compose myself enough to take pictures of myself, where I was so emotionally destroyed. I could not take pictures of myself after this, because for the first 10 minutes after this episode finished, I like was still about to vomit. Like, I still
Sure.
had that. It doesn't help that I admittedly ate dinner like 30 minutes before I watched this, which was a bad idea. But dude, I was hungry. I just got off of work. I had to watch 4 episodes of anime, and Andor and Last of Us, because I was behind. Because I was dreading
There's
this fucking episode so much.
I think the greatest example of this, and the only reason I'm telling you this is because you obviously know about this. This is something that's like cultural history, and I've quoted it to you several times. And I'm never going to make you watch this show, nor have you ever wanted to watch this show. So I don't even care that I'm telling you this now. But I think a moment that is exactly on par with this and equal is The Walking Dead with Negan Smith and Glenn
Yeah,
Reed,
I've heard about
and
this. Yeah, I've heard about this.
the big baseball bat scene where Negan just takes a bat to Glenn's fucking head and bashes his brains in front of the group. That was a TV moment that for weeks people would just absolutely get upset about. People stopped watching the show after that, and I feel like here, for the same reason, people are going to stop watching the show because of the choice. But something that the game, here's why I think that they actually do it better here than in the game. One, it's not nearly as gruesome. Secondly, it's a
That was
lot.
one thing that I was a little appreciative of,
Yeah,
because I probably will go back and watch the scene in the video game now just to see the contrast, but I had seen like images, and it was definitely way more gruesome, which was another reason I just was dreading this episode, is because I wasn't sure how far they were going to go.
right.
Having known how gruesome the death was in the video game. And like, again, I can handle gore, but when you're watching a character that you love, I loved Joel. Pedro Pascal fucking kills it as Joel. And watching a
Yeah, he's
character
great.
that you love so much getting their like brutally bashed in, I just did not want to see happen at all. So I guess I'm a little
Sure.
glad that they tamed down a little bit, but like it was still gruesome. Like the shot of Ellie looking at him in his just destroyed, like brutalized face after
Yeah.
Abby is just wailing on him was still pretty like hard to look at.
Yeah, and I don't. They handle a lot better because also something they do a lot of things different from the game that they do here. One of the biggest things is Abby gives away a major part of her backstory that you don't get in the game until much later, which
Her
is that
dad.
the reason that Abby's been doing it is because her dad was the doctor that Joel shot in the head. In season 1, you get a long shot of the doc like lingering on the doctor lying on the ground, and I even remember watching like a reaction video for it, being like, oh, why are we lingering on that shot? It seems kind of unnecessary. Like, we've been here for like 10 seconds. All right, let's move on. Well, now there's a reason why. It is
Yeah.
Abby's dad, and they give that to you very early on, and it almost like it gives Joel more of a, I guess, not it gives you as the audience more comfort for Joel dying, because whereas you don't want it to happen and you still want Abby to die, you completely understand now as the audience why this is happening. It's not just a needless, senseless murder. There is a reason and a motive behind it, and you completely understand why. And as much as you hate it, you can still look at this and go, okay. I mean, even Joel himself, like, as Abby's like is saying, like, look, you're unarmed, but I am gonna kill you because some things are just fucking wrong. And Joel nods, like, in agreement.
Joel
Like, he
can't
just
disagree. Like he
he just
understands.
he accepts his fate because he understands exactly where he's at. And That's honestly what makes his final line. Like, this is his final line. He knows he's going to die. He knows there's no escape. And so he literally just tells Abby to shut the fuck up and kill him. Like, it
Yeah.
is his final line. And that's what he says, which I don't know. Like, even like I feel a bit more of a comfort with Pedro Pascal. Like, it's like he's giving permission, like, it's okay, kill me. It's okay. And it's almost like he's giving it to the audience too,
See,
like, it's okay. I'll be here.
I will say I predicted that the doctor was Abby's dad before it was revealed. Not
Yeah.
just because obviously we have the shot of her going into specifically the doctor's room. I
Yeah.
kind of had an inkling. Again, I did not have this part of the game spoiled for me.
Sure.
We obviously, it's very clear, and I'm pretty sure it's very clear in the game that she had early on that she has a connection to someone there. You just might not know who it is.
You just don't know who. Right.
So that's why personally, I don't know what the like online reception is for it. I don't have as big of a problem as I feel like maybe some people are going to have with them revealing this early, because I think that you already know she has a connection in the video game. From my understanding, you already know she has a connection. Like, there obviously is a reason she wants vengeance. So I think the
Yeah.
semantics of it, I think if you care about that, like, that's fine. I'm not going to judge you. To me, finding out that it's the doctor's dad versus, here's the thing. I would have cared just as much, and I think her vengeance would have been just as justified, is if her dad or her brother or even like a boyfriend was one of the random gunmen that Joel shoots, because no matter what, he killed all of them. So I think that it being the doctor, to me, and maybe this is just a personal thing, doesn't necessarily make a difference. So since we already knew she had a familiar connection, finding out that it's the doctor, it's like, okay, cool, now we know who it is, but it doesn't change the fact that she has that vengeance in her heart anyway. I don't know if you feel differently on that, but like, that's kind of my 2 cents.
It doesn't really matter to me either. I think that this being the doctor though adds a little bit more of a thing, because like he's a doctor. That's rare nowadays. You can find any random Joe to pick up a gun and be a gunman. Anybody
Yeah,
can do
and he was unarmed.
And he was unarmed, which is the whole thing that Abby, says to Joel. There hasn't been like a lot of online buzz about the change. If anything, I feel like people actually like that they're revealing it more. But also, again, in the video game, you start off as Ellie, and the whole point is that you meet up with Abby, and this is one of the bigger changes from the game. Dina's not with Joel when Joel dies in the game. It's Tommy.
Oh, really?
It's Tommy. Tommy's with Joel.
Oh.
And it's like,
So was Dina, because we follow Tommy a lot in this episode. So I guess that's a question. Does the invasion of the settlement not happen at the same time as Joel's
it
death in the
does.
video game?
It does.
So
But
then,
Tommy's just with Joel and not Dina. And the whole point of
okay.
the whole point of the overarching story is that Dina goes with Ellie because Dina cares about Ellie, and she still does here, and she she cares about Joel. They still have a connection. Dina did talk to Joel in the games. They had like this companionship. But here in the show, they had the opportunity to flesh it out more by letting Dina be another daughter-like figure for Joel. And Dina being put to sleep and then waking up, finding out that Joel is dead, is going to have another driving impact force to allow the story to continue with more emotional weight that I don't think the game actually offered. Like, when I mean the show's doing everything better than the game right now, I truly believe it. But again, the biggest thing that this is what I was trying to get at when I said that there's not like a lot of talk about online, because I don't think people care, is there is a massive difference between a video game and a TV show. In a TV show, you might have to give the audience something because you're not going to spend as much time as you would in a game with a certain character. And in this case, about halfway through game 2, part 2, you literally switch to Abby's perspective. You're playing as Ellie, and it's this whole vengeance bloodlust to go after this is kind of a spoiler for you for later in the game. She's going after Tommy, who's already gone rogue, to go find Abby and kill Abby because he feels the loss of Joel. I mean, that's a spoiler, but also, come on, that's going to happen. It's not shocking. And about halfway through the game, after you've gone through this whole bloodlust quest revenge, you switch and you play as Abby for another half of the game. And you see all the events.
I did know about that. I guess that's the only other big thing that I know about, is that you play as Abby. So I'm really interested to see how they adapt that to the TV show, because my my guess is that that's going to be season 3 of The Last of Us. Is that this season will
Probably.
probably end right before the perspective changes, and we'll start off next season following Abby. Is my guess.
Or it might be a very chronological order, which I'm, again, because it's a TV show, it might make more sense to be chronological as opposed to just constantly going back and forth over long period gaps and then let the audience lose interest because of long period gaps. The only thing, there are some things that I do know that are like in this show that are different. Like, I know we're having a whole episode dedicated to Joe Pantoliano as Eugene, Gail's husband, and that's going to be a
Which
whole
we get a little
prequel
bit of in
episode.
this episode as well.
But we're getting a whole prequel episode dedicated to that, in which Pedro Pascal's Joel will definitely be a part of, and obviously Ellie's going to be a part of, and we got multiple flashbacks that are from the game. There's one specifically that happens at the end of game 2 that will happen probably at the end of season 3 once the story is all wrapped up. But the show really tries to change your perspective about Abby even earlier on, because as much as you don't like that Joel's going, you have to, as an audience member, understand why it's happening. And I think that they do it better here than they did in the game. I think, let's not dwell on Joel's death too much. Let's also mention like the good things that happened. The Battle of Jackson is very cinematic. It's very reminiscent of a battle that happens later in Game of Thrones called Hardhome, with all the White Walkers that will come like later, and it's really, really cool. It's like in this whole winter setting. It's epic. It's sick, and it's very similar here. With just like various different things. Tommy fighting the bloater was just insane, dude. Holy shit.
I wrote Big Chungus in my notes. That's what I call the bloaters, is Big Chungus. I'm looking at my notes again. I wrote that's an unbelievable amount of infected, because holy shit. I just wrote the words flamethrower squadron, which I want to point out. 2 of those bitches ran away immediately. Like, they didn't even turn on their flamethrowers. They just went, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yeah.
I also wrote down they were very, very well prepared for an infected battle, which I think makes total sense. Like, you should be, and I think that's the only reason any of them survived. It was still devastating watching the town get destroyed, and I'm really curious to see where next episode picks up, both in terms of, is there a time gap, what's this look like, but also in terms of how do you recover from this. Like, obviously there are survivors, but like, your town is destroyed, your defense is destroyed, tons of people are fucking dead. Like, where do you go from here? Like, do you rebuild? Do you move? Like, what do you do?
I think that the thing I specifically just like about this episode is that they really do show the Battle of Jackson, and you don't see any of the Battle of Jackson in the game. You see barely any of it. You hear about it, and that's pretty much it. It's as far as I can remember. Maybe there might have been something that I just don't remember about, but I'm pretty sure you never see the Battle of Jackson. You hear about it, but you never see it. And so I just think it's very interesting. And I love the choice to let Tommy stay back and be a leader. It really shows a big change in his character arc. And
I loved watching Tommy like take charge and stand his ground. Again, I kind of was thinking that Tommy might die. Like, I was actually like, my heart was racing watching Tommy like be put in the predicament that he was with Big Chungus, with the bloaters.
The only reason I knew Tommy wasn't gonna die was purely just because if they're gonna kill Joel, they're not killing Tommy.
I mean, that's fair, but also I wouldn't put it past this show. Like, this show is one thing that so I did want to make mention that a big difference so far in this. So, and I don't know what this looks like for the rest of the series, but season 1, you barely have any infected. I mean, the biggest infected, you have like one-offs here and there. The biggest infected, I think it was episode 7, which was the episode with Will and Sam, where
episode
the
5.
infected come out. Episode 5, was it?
Episode 5.
Okay, where they come out of the ground and there's that big horde, but we really don't spend all that much time with it because the show is really just about Joel and Ellie and their journey and the human aspect of surviving an apocalypse. Now, with this season, and at least with this episode specifically, you still have that very human aspect with the conflict of Abby and Joel, but you also have the realities of no, this is still like, this isn't just a world with no infected. The infected are still very much a threat, and they establish the infected as a threat. Obviously, we have last episode with the intelligent infected being like this new big, like, oh my god, what is this going to be? But you don't just have that. In this episode, you have the bloaters, you have your regular infected, and you have a
Yeah.
very large quantity of it, really harkening back to something like The Walking Dead, which is very well known for its giant set piece zombie battles with a bunch of zombies coming in. I know that's
Right.
not the entire show, but you do have a
No,
lot
no.
of
I
that.
get what you're saying. I get what
Um,
you're saying.
and that's something that this show hasn't, it's done once, and I don't know if it's going to happen again, but it happens very early in the season to remind you, no, like the humans are not the only threat. Like, yes, you're dealing, and that's, I guess, an interesting thing that this episode does is it shows you both the major threats all at once. It shows you the human aspect with Abby, and it shows you the infected aspect with the giant battle on the settlement.
Yeah. Again, the thing I love about season 1 of Last of Us is that the whole season is the story of hope, and it's the story of figuring out or finding somebody in the when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light. It's looking for the light
Yeah.
in the darkness of this world. And the second game, or season 2, and I guess technically 3, is the story about a cycle of revenge, and how far are you willing to go into that to avenge somebody who you've lost. And I think both stories are very well executed when done right with each other, and so far they've done it right. The last thing I will say about this episode is that I think it is a, if you get past it, you take your deep breath and you you rip off the band-aid and you've had time to think about it, I think this is probably a 10 out of 10 episode of a
Oh yeah,
television
no.
show. It is the
It
highest rated
it's
episode of the show on IMDb right now.
fantastic episode, and it's not just because you have the big emotional beat of Joel's death. It's really just because it does a fantastic job of making you care. It does again, it has the dual like conflict of this episode, and it really spends a good amount of time on both of them.
Yeah.
And I'll end this on a little bit of a lighter note. You have Jesse, this scene where Jesse, and this is where like you feel like, oh yeah, this is just gonna be another episode of The Last of Us. Like everything's happy go lucky, and then things go to shit so fast. I laughed out loud with the scene of Jesse and Ellie when Jesse comes to wake Ellie up for the thing, and Jesse is like pretending like, oh, you kissed her, you bitch, you kissed my, we just broke up. And Ellie's like, you can see the actual panic on Ellie's face. And then Jesse's like, nah, I'm just pulling your leg. I already knew. I don't give a fuck. And it's like,
I don't
oh
care.
God. Like I love that scene. One, because it was funny, but also it just goes to further make you like, when big emotional beats happen with these characters, you care. And this is
Yeah.
why you care, is because they're
Yeah.
not just an NPC in the background. Like Jesse's a character we don't get a ton of. Like we get a good amount of him, but he's obviously not a main focus of the show. But if something were to happen to Jesse, like I would care. And it's because of scenes like this. Like if they
Sure.
only had the scenes of him being like kind of like the leader and telling Ellie what to do and things like that, like okay,
It
cool. Like
wouldn't
if
be as
something happens to him,
impactful.
it wouldn't
Right.
impact as much. But just this one scene, and you get a lot of these one-off scenes with characters of just Jesse being like, I'm pulling your leg, like whatever. Because that
Right.
also builds into what happens with I guess I said I was going to talk about one more thing, but this kind of plays into the same thing of Seth apologizing. And I think he was he kind of seemed very genuine about his apology, but Ellie didn't give a fuck. And I'm not saying she has to forgive him, but it is a very, I really liked that scene because you could see a man who was like, I fucked up, like I was drunk, like I'm sorry. Is he actually sorry? You don't really know. It
I
kind of
think
feels like he is,
well,
but
I think you're describing exactly how the show wants you to feel, which is
yeah,
he actually
exactly.
apologizing? They want you to question him because that's how it is with normal people. Are you actually sorry, or are you just saying you're sorry because you have to?
Yeah, you never really know.
Um, and so I don't know. It goes back to show that this show, Neil Druckmann and Craig Mason, round of applause. You are masters at your craft, and you did a phenomenal job bringing this world to life, this story to life. And as of right now, although I fucking hate you and you ripped my heart out, please don't ever come across me or I will shoot you in the face.
Let's not threaten people, but yes, I understand.
Let's not threaten people on the podcast, please. That's not really. There was a video that went around on my Instagram of people. They're the background's The Last of Us world, and they're walking around. They're like, oh, "Excuse me, are you Abby?" Yeah, I'm just just pulling a gun on Abby.
Yeah,
Killing her.
honestly though, valid crash out, valid understanding. The first thing I did after watching this episode, other than go to the bathroom and like dry heave, was I turned on Koi's review of this episode, and the look of defeat on this man's face when he's trying to get through the intro. Well, very clearly, just having finished watching this episode, you could see the red on his face. I was like, this man is. I feel so bad for this man right now. He is not a. He does not know the game. He did not know this was going to happen. Poor man did not deserve this. But yeah.
Anyway,
let's go ahead and transition into the main topic of this episode, which I guess technically is multiple things, but it's all Star Wars related. So we're just calling it the main topic because it's Star Wars.
sure.
I'm going to go ahead and start this off. Instead of starting off with Andor, since we just got done talking about a bunch of other TV shows and movies, let's talk about Star Wars Celebration first. Since that's a little bit more
read off your list.
Yeah. So
I'm really
this
happy to
is
get the list
all
for that.
coming from StarWars.com. It is the Star Wars website. So I'm going to very strongly assume that all of this is correct, which I point that out mainly because last episode we had mentioned a few things that are not on this list. So I don't think this is why you shouldn't trust people on the internet that aren't official sources, because I did mention I think I was talking about like, oh, they someone said that the Rey movie was confirmed and a Finn movie and a new trilogy. None of that is on that list. None of that is on this list, so I'm going to assume that given that this is StarWars.com, that this is the penultimate list, and that those things that the people had mentioned on Instagram are not true, or at least were not talked about at Star Wars Celebration.
Then let's go down the list. Start with the first one.
So the first thing, and it's just a very quick one, is the next Star Wars Celebration is happening in Los Angeles. It's happening April 1st to the 4th in 2027. We might be there. I texted Carson an image of it. I'm not saying we are. I'm not saying we're not. But I've been to 2 Star Wars celebrations as mentioned previously, and since it's happening in the United States again, I am very, very, very heavily considering I will probably be there next year, or not next year, but in 2027.
I do like Los Angeles.
I've never been, so but anyways, the first thing that I have on this list is we're getting a season 3 of Star Wars Visions, which is, if you don't know what Star Wars Visions is, it is the episodic anime of Star Wars. Every single episode is directed by a different studio. Notably, the 2 studios I want to point out that are doing episodes is Studio Trigger, which did the Cyberpunk Edge Runners anime, and Dungeon Meshi, which are both represented right here on the wall. Both anime I absolutely love. I'm really excited. I believe Studio Trigger did episodes in season, I don't know if it was 1 or 2, but I believe they have already done episodes. I'm very excited to see those. Have you seen Star Wars Visions season 1 and 2?
I've seen season 1. I enjoyed season 1, but I just never went to watch season 2. There wasn't anything wrong with it.
I also have only watched season 1 and have not. I have started season 2. I never finished season 2, mainly because it's just, I will probably, honestly, I was thinking about it. I might watch it this weekend, or sometime soon. It's very easy to get through, so I might end up talking about it next week
Oh
on the
yeah,
podcast, or maybe we'll just do a quick 3-minute review of it.
yeah,
But I really want to watch it. The other notable studio is there's a lot of notable studios on here, but the only one that catches my eye is Studio Wit. The only reason I want to point out Studio Wit is because they are doing the One Piece remake, where they're remaking the entire One Piece anime. They are the studio that's animating the
yeah,
One Piece remake. So I'm
yeah.
very curious to see what they do with their Star Wars episode. The other thing, that I guess the next thing that was announced is they're doing a long form Star Wars Visions called Star
Yeah.
Wars Visions Presents the Ninth Jedi. So
Yeah.
essentially, and I have a little blurb here from the website. It says long form stories. So it's going to be multiple from Star Wars Visions are in the work. Starting with a continuation of Kara's story from the Ninth Jedi and Child of Hope. So it sounds like they're taking some of the fan favorite episodes from Star Wars Visions and giving
Yeah.
them. I don't know what long form is considered, but the episodes in Visions are like, I think like 10 to 20 minutes. We might get an hour. We might get 45 minutes. It does not say in here. But that's going to be very interesting to see, because I do really enjoy Star Wars Vision. Obviously, I'm a huge anime fan, so seeing one of my favorite things, Star Wars, and one of my favorite things, anime, being put together, very exciting to see, especially with very notable studios. But I'm curious to see what they do with these long form.
Long form means TV series or shows with multiple narratives that unfold over multiple episodes rather than individual self-contained episodes.
Oh, so okay. So I guess, and this is where again it doesn't get very specific in here. This is just pulling off the little bit of a blurb that I copied over from the Star Wars website. So
Sure.
I guess they're turning this into probably short, maybe 4 episodes, maybe 5 episodes, something like that, or maybe more. So
Sure.
that's actually
Right.
really exciting. I thought long form in the terms of we'll get an hour and a half episode type of thing. But no, that's really interesting. Um, let's see. What
Next
else? Sorry.
thing.
There's an update coming to the Smuggler's Run at Galaxy's
Mhm.
Edge, the
Yep, I saw
ride.
that. That
Um, there's
which
Fortnite,
fine.
Star Wars.
Smuggler's Run. I look. I hold on. I can prove it right now. I literally have a Walt Disney World pass. Smuggler's
Yeah.
Run is the worst Star Wars ride I've ever ridden. It's so stupid. It's
I have
so bad.
fun. I've only ridden it once. I went 2 years, no, about a year ago at this point, about a year and a half ago. Because I went on it right before I graduated college, and I had fun. I had fun. I'm curious to see what those. It says that a new mission inspired by the Mandalorian and Grogu is being added to Smuggler's Run.
Yeah, which I don't
Um,
know. That might make it interesting, but I don't know. I just think that that ride can get very rough at times, which it's unnecessarily rough considering it's basically Star Tours but in the Millennium Falcon. Um. Anyway, but enough about that. Continue. Sorry.
no, you're good. Star Wars is doing another collaboration with Fortnite. I don't really care. I don't play
Sure.
Fortnite.
Whatever.
I like this note that just says the cast of Andor can't wait for you to watch the 3-episode season 2 premiere, which we'll talk about after this. I like how that's a whole like news thing in here. But no, that's another thing. Star Wars Zero Company was announced, which is a I can't remember if we talked, I think we talked on this a little bit last week. It is a strategy game similar to XCOM in the Star Wars universe. It takes place, it is a single player turn-based tactics game. It's coming to PC, PS5, Xbox. I don't see Switch on here, so we'll see. But this takes place during Clone Wars. So you're following spies in Clone Wars in a tactics
Mm,
game, which
yeah.
is interesting because I do enjoy the Mario plus Rabbits and XCOM style games. So I might pick this one up because I also love Star Wars.
Sure.
Um,
Right.
but we'll see. I don't know if you ever watched Rebuild the Galaxy. It is the Lego it's 4 episodes, each about 30 to 35 minutes of a what if Star Wars story told in a Lego perspective.
I know exactly what it is, and I've actually seen clips from it. There was a specific reason I never watched it, and maybe it's because I thought, oh no, it's too kiddie for me. Like that might have been my literal
So
thought, and I'm just like, I don't know. It might be, it might not
I
be.
was on the fence of watching it. I actually watched this a while ago. So I watched this on the car ride to the Christmas cruise that I went on this past year. I watched
Yeah,
all 4 episodes in one sitting in the car on top of a bunch of other things. I thought it was actually pretty good. I'd say if you have, I think it takes like 2 hours in total to watch, probably a little less because it's only 4 episodes. I'd say
sure.
watch it. And the reason I say that is because we're getting a season 2.
Yeah.
It is all episodes are dropping at once on Disney Plus on September 19th. So it's actually not that long of a ride or long of a wait. And it says that we'll get Ahsoka, specifically the Bricks Head Ahsoka, which are those like
Mhm.
little like not mini figures, but those like blocky head
Yeah,
style.
yeah,
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
which I guess is weird but interesting. But yeah, we'll be getting a season 2 of that. I don't know if it's a season 2. We're getting more of it.
Sure.
There's some stuff about sorry, the theme park in here again. Let's see. Yeah, so the Star Wars Starfighter, we mentioned this last week, directed by Sean Levy, starring Ryan Gosling. Don't
Yep.
think we have much more to say on this because we talked about it last week, but that is exciting. Same with The Mandalorian and Grogu. They showed a little
Yep.
bit of footage. I have not seen that footage. But very interested. Excuse me, very interested to see what that movie turns into.
Yeah.
Also spoke about this last week, but we have the Maul Shadow Lord, the
The one I'm
animated
probably Yep.
series.
Probably the one I'm
The one
most
I'm probably the
anticipated
most
about.
excited for. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, and then there is a upcoming Star Wars manga that's being released.
Okay.
It seems to be following Thrawn. So I
Okay.
might actually give that a read when it releases. I know Thrawn. I actually, when I went to AwesomeCon up here in DC, the author who created Thrawn was one of the people I went to his panel at, and it was really interesting to get his insights because I love Thrawn. And so I love Thrawn as a character, so I'm probably actually going to give this a read. I don't read all the Star Wars content because honestly, there's just too
Sure.
much and there's not enough time in the day. But I love manga, so I might actually give this a try. Cover looks pretty dope. Um, Hasbro is releasing a new line, releasing more figures for their Star Wars Legends line.
Yep.
Um, there's this image. So they have an anime, Star Wars Celebration had an anime and manga pavilion. And I wish I could show this on screen. I'm not going to share my screen because I'm not going to mess things up for the view wise. But they have a very lovely image of all the different characters from the Visions and manga in all the different
Oh, that's
anime
cool.
styles. That's like a picture.
That's
Really
cool.
dope looking image. There is new story content coming to Star Wars Outlaws, which if you have not seen, if you have not heard, it is a video game based in the Star Wars universe. It follows Kay Vess and Nyx, her little like axolotl looking pet. The story content is going to be them teaming up with Hondo, which is a fan favorite character. So interesting. I never played the game. I don't think you ever played the game, but interesting that it's getting more
Never wanted
content.
to. I heard a lot of reviews for it and just saying that it was a massive disappointment, and I didn't want to spend the $100 to play a massive disappointment like I did with Battlefront 2, which obviously in previous years that game made a revival. It's actually okay now
I
that the
had fun.
microtransactions are
I've put
gone.
quite a few hours in Battlefront 2, I will say.
I'm level I think 350 with my assault class in that game, which probably isn't okay. That's bad. But
Yeah, I don't know what I'm at or what my level is, but like I have put quite a few hours into that game. I enjoyed it for what it was never my favorite game of all time. It was another
sure.
pandemic game, admittedly. When I wasn't playing Warzone, I was playing that game. Um they have a really cool K2SO Lego set coming out that's just like
Yeah,
K2SO.
I saw that, and it
Looks
comes with like a little
dope.
minifigure of him too. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, looks dope. Another show that I know neither of us have watched, but is very interesting, is the Young Jedi Adventures TV series. It's the very, very
Yeah,
cartoony children's like
yeah,
Disney
yeah, yeah.
Junior style Star Wars show. I
Yeah,
might watch it one day just because it's Star Wars content and I'm kind of curious.
I
But that's
won't.
coming back in the fall for a new season. And that's pretty much it. So anything that I did not list out, again, this is coming from
Isn't
starwars.com. So
right.
anything that wasn't on this list, things like the new trilogy announcements, the new movie following Rey, to my knowledge, and according to this, none of that was spoken about at Star Wars Celebration. So please take
Gotcha.
all of the anything you hear that wasn't listed on this with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that this list is perfectly comprehensive, but I trust starwars.com more than I trust some random dude on Instagram.
I saw they
Um
were bringing back Clone Wars, Brandon. Look at that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because here's the thing, everything that the people on Instagram that I had seen were talking about were all things that have been rumored in the past. So
Yeah.
maybe I don't know if they were clickbaity or rage bait or what it was, but just again, be careful. Interesting things, not a ton from Star Wars Celebration. I'm just going to say this, I was expecting a little bit more from this celebration, just given the fact that other than Andor and Ahsoka and Mando, we haven't gotten a Star Wars movie in a while. And it sounds like the Squadrons movie with Ryan Gosling is going to be the first Star Wars movie we get since the sequels, and that's not coming out until 2027. Well, I guess
Yeah.
no, we're getting the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, which is next year, right? I believe
Yeah.
that's next year if I remember
That's
correctly.
next year.
So I guess
Yeah.
technically, but it's still going to be years. It's still going to be a while. And we
Sure.
really only have a few mainline canon things to look forward to from Star Wars. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing that they didn't announce a lot. I'm just a little surprised that it was so downscaled. So I'm curious to see what 2027 looks like. And maybe
Yeah.
we'll get more, and maybe that's their big magnum opus. But yeah, that is the I guess synopsis of Star Wars Celebration. Any final notes, thoughts on that, or just want to move on to talk
Uh
about other things?
yeah, let's I mean, there's nothing really I can say about it because that's all that we've gotten is just announcements. There's nothing really else to like really talk about with some of these. Again, they sound cool, but also like I'm also in a moment now with Star Wars where it's like you can create good things, and we've seen it. Andor is living proof of that. Skeleton Crew is proof of that, where you can create some pretty good, entertaining things. So what the fuck happened with Acolyte? Like, what are you doing? What happened with the sequels? Like, I'm stumbling a lot with Star Wars, in a
Star
lot
Wars
worse
is
ways
so
than I
hot and
can.
cold right now where I can understand why people might not watch. Like, I know the reception for Andor season 2 has been glowing. Like, people are loving it, obviously, as they should. Very
Sure.
well deserved praise. But I would understand, admittedly, if you were a little reprehensive, just given the I guess hot and cold nature that Star Wars has
Of
had
it.
recently.
Yeah.
I personally have been a lot more hot on a lot of things. I've actually enjoyed a lot more. I feel like enjoy the Star Wars things that have come out a lot more than a lot of people have recently, but I can
Sure.
understand their criticisms, and I come at it more from a fan perspective than a critic perspective. And I know that the fans
Yeah.
are still upset, but again, I go in to enjoy things. So I try not to be super critical unless it's Lazarus and it's kind of boring. Um, but but yeah.
Let's
Anyway,
quickly talk about Andor
yeah, I
because
was
I
gonna
don't got that
say,
much to
I
say
think we're
about it.
gonna. I know I had mentioned at the top about the 20th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 3. I don't think either of us have a ton to talk about. we'll definitely do a ranking of the Star Wars movies one day, so we'll probably talk about
Yeah.
it much more then. I do plan on seeing it in theaters as long as they don't yank it from theaters immediately, like they have with a lot of movies recently. But I don't know. It's an enjoyable movie. We'll probably talk about it more later. But let's just go ahead and jump into we have 3 episodes of Andor to
Yeah.
talk about. So,
All
do you want
very,
to go
very well.
episode to episode, or do you want to just jump around and talk about what
No,
we enjoyed and talk about it holistically?
no, we can talk about it as a whole arc in and of itself. I'm not really like worried about going episode by episode. I think they did. I mentioned in my 3-minute review. I think that this is a very welcome return to this world and to this story, and a very welcome return back to mature Star Wars.
Yeah.
Which again,
Oh, yeah. Especially that
it
last episode. Hmm.
it's not fair to call this show Star Wars when it deals with very heavy themes like this. And I think the only real complaint that I actually had with this 3-episode arc is it is the weakest of the 3-episode arcs I think that Andor has actually done thus far. Even
Yeah.
if you look at the first season, like it objectively, even though it didn't release, I don't actually remember. Did it release in 3 episodes each week that
I
first
don't
season?
remember how the first season of Andor released, to be
It doesn't matter.
honest.
If you look at it though, it is technically like 3-episode arcs for everything. 3 episodes before Andor goes with Luthien in the beginning, 3 episodes of him robbing the Empire, 3 episodes of him escaping prison, and then I think it's actually like 2 episodes of like the big finale with his mom dying
Yeah, so
and him.
yeah. So I think it is. I don't know if it dropped in the 3 episodes, but I do remember that it was chunks of a story. It's very similar to what we're seeing
They
now.
were structured into what we're seeing, like something very similar to what we're
Yes.
seeing now. So that's why I'm saying, like, of all of the arcs that they have done within the show, not bad, very good. There's a lot of character and a lot of great things to love within these episodes, but it is by far the weakest. There is really nothing for I think Cassian to really do here beyond show how he's like
For being called Andor, he is not in this 3 episodes all that much. He's really like barely on screen, and that was something
yeah,
I'm glad that I'm not the only one who had this as a note. Because I think my biggest like if I wanted to summarize it into not just like that, it is I think one of the biggest drawbacks to this 3 episode is they try to do too much. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed what we saw, but you're following Mon Mothma, you're following Bix and the Grain Planet, you're following what's his name? I'm forgetting you're following Dedra
yeah,
and Cyril.
yeah.
Um and I actually really enjoy all of those aspects individually. You're watching Mon marry off her daughter. You're watching Dedra go through her own arc with Gormon and also meeting Cyril's mom. And
Correct.
you're following Andor and his theft of the TIE fighter and his eventual
The
capture and hostage situation. And you're following
Yes.
Bix on the Grain Planet, but you're following so many things that you're not really getting, I feel like, enough of any of those stories.
Well, yeah, and I actually wouldn't even say it's that. My biggest problem is I care about all of those stories except Cassian's. Cassian's is fine. He's
Yeah.
getting off this planet, which was originally this meeting point for him, and now it's been taken over by these random group of what did they say they were savages? What are they technically?
No, they're not savages from my and this is where again I agree with you. I fully agree with you that ironically enough, the title character's like arc is the lamest and like most like I don't care about this storyline.
Yeah.
I really like how it started. It's funny because I wrote a note in episode 1 where it's like, how does he know how to fly this TIE fighter? He's never like flown this before. And then immediately I'm proven wrong because he just fucks up and doesn't know how to actually fly
He
it.
doesn't.
And I really
No.
enjoyed that I immediately got proven wrong. Um,
Again,
but
it's not
from
bad.
my
It's just the weakest.
well, yeah, because from my understanding, they're also rebels question mark, but a different offshoot who's led by this person Maya, who like we don't
Yeah.
really get any like it. I don't know if we're gonna go back to it at all, and I think that's my biggest problem with it is there's no conclusion to their story because Cassian just leaves,
Yeah.
and you don't really care about any of them at all.
Yeah. I think I think that what they're trying to set up here, and this is something that we see a lot in Rogue One, and it's probably why they're addressing it now. And they kind of talk about it in the first season, and especially when you see Saul Guerrera again in the first season, there are different factions of this rebellion that they're forming.
It's a very disjointed rebellion in the early stages before
Correct.
the events. I mean, realistically, before the events of Rogue One, it's really just a bunch of people individually, groups fighting against the Empire until they come together with the magnum opus that is the Death Star plans being stolen and a common goal.
Right.
It really just starts off as people trying to protect their home worlds and their planets, which is very, from my understanding, that's the group of people that Cassian Andor like stumbles across. It's just
Yeah.
people who are trying to fight the rebellion or fight for the rebellion, but really just for the protection of their own planet.
Sure.
But again, we don't really care. Like they fight each other, and it's just there to keep Andor away from the main story. That's the only reason that plot at the time. And again, maybe we'll build upon this. And if we do, I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. But I agree it was the weakest plot point because then you jump to a story
Yeah.
like Mons, and Mons having the whole thing with Tay and Luther and marrying off her daughter and her having to deal with simultaneously the political drama of being a mainstay figure in the rebellion while also having to deal with the fact that she's a mom to Lita and marrying
Right.
her off and dealing with that,
I
which I think
think
was just
that
an exceptional story.
I think that the story we're going to see throughout the season, it's not so much anymore the story of Cassian Andor, even though we're following his character. It's not going to be about him choosing to fight in this rebellion. It's not going to be him because he already did that at the end of the season. Cassian's arc, I think, technically was over by the end of that first season. He's all in it, balls to the walls. Let's do this rebellion thing by the end of the first season. I think the rest of Andor season 1 is through the eyes of Andor, watching how the rebellion becomes the rebellion we know it is in Rogue One.
Well, and I honestly see that as a bit of a negative. I'm going to be honest with you, mainly because it's called Andor. My main
Right.
problem with these 3 episodes is that I already mentioned it, but for the fact that the show is called Andor, you get zero, like you get nothing from Andor that's at all interesting.
I
I
agree.
think now that he's regrouped with Bix and that faction, we're gonna get a lot more Andor. So I'm curious to see where the next 3 episodes are. But I think that for title this Rogue One Part 0.5, like the prelude to Rogue One. Call it
Mhm.
something other than Andor. Call it the makings of the rebellion or something like that, because
Sure.
it is still an amazing story and it is still fantastic, but it's no longer Andor's story because Andor season 1 is Andor. You're getting Andor's backstory. You're getting Andor joining the rebellion. You're getting Andor.
Right.
This is not Andor. This is a fantastic show, but it's not Andor. It
It's
is the
like,
makings of the rebellion.
and I'm not comparing it to the same thing because there's a difference between this and something like the Book of Boba Fett. But the difference is Book of Boba Fett genuinely had horrible writing and was stupid, and about halfway through became the Mando season 2.5. But you're kind of seeing similar things here in a sense of where it's like, okay, this is no longer Andor's sole story where we're following him choosing to join the rebellion. It's now about forming the rebellion itself through the eyes of Andor. And again, that's just a speculation. For all I know, I could be completely off with this, and it could be Andor's story, and we could have an Andor arc. But from how they're
Yeah.
explaining and setting up the story again, and again, it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a way up a path they're taking I did not expect them to take. I figured they would have done
Yeah.
something completely different. But I do understand and I can completely see the justification for we need to set up Mon Mothra to eventually fully reveal to the Republic that she is now, she's a part of this rebellion, because that's again where we see her in Rogue One. It picks up she is the leader of the rebellion. She's there, like fighting the good fight.
Fully rebellion.
Fully rebellion. We have to get to that point. Obviously, we get to a point to where, for whatever reason, Luthien's no longer a part of this story. More than likely, he's probably going to die. And we have to get to that point. We got to see all that. But I just think that it should be told in a different way than what they're doing. You can tell Mon Mothra's story, but tell it through the eyes of Luthien, like you did in season 1. You can tell the story of Bix, but tell it through the eyes of Cassian Andor. Like that's who the show is about. It should be about Andor. It shouldn't be about this through this character.
I disagree with you, just from the sense of I have no problem at all with the way that they're telling the story. My only problem is don't call it Andor. Don't call it Andor season 2. That is literally my only gripe, is call it anything other than Andor season 2. And again, we should specify that is just for these 3 episodes. We could easily be proven wrong. We have 3 more batches of 3
speculation.
episodes.
We don't even know if it is the first 3 episodes. It could have a whole meaning behind it. It literally is speculation at this point, because we don't know what's going to happen. This is just how we feel right now in this moment. Again, not bad, not unwatchable, not a backstep in any sense, as far as like the quality of the writing, the storylines they're telling for other characters, and the weight and emotion that you feel. It's still mature Star Wars. It's still everything you liked about Andor. It's just different in the sense of the path they chose. I really don't have anything more to say about it other than that. I really liked what they did. I thought it was a great return, a great welcome to form. I just think that as far as a story goes, they are honing in on other things than the main character like himself, which I don't know if if it's going to play into a factor later, or if it doesn't. We will see what happens. And that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
I mean, I think, again, I don't disagree with you, but like just talking about some of, I guess, more specifics on the individual stories, because we've kind of just mainly focused on like, I feel like we've been very negative on this show. Not like,
sure.
I don't want to get it like I want to focus more on like our thoughts on, I guess, what we enjoyed about the show now, and talk about like what was actually done really well. Which, like, again, I think that the watching Mon's dynamic with her daughter Lita was very interesting. And you have that line at the end when Mon's about to walk Lita out, and she makes the little comment of like, "Oh, my mom was drunk," and Lita was like, "Oh, like that sucks, like that's terrible." But then at the end of that like conversation, Lita then tells her mom, "I wish you were just drunk," because Mon goes on this whole rant about like, we could call this off, like we don't have to do this, and Lita's like, "Nah, fuck you, like I'm gonna do this," which kind of gives you an idea of who Lita is as a character.
Yeah.
I think, and I already like touched on it, but like the scene with Bix and the lieutenant is,
oh my god,
the darkest scene.
Holy shit.
Like she literally like says the words, "He tried to rape me."
It's one of those things where I actually was watching it happen and I went, this is this Star Wars? Like, I genuinely asked the question, is this Star Wars? What the hell am I watching? Like, this was like a scene straight from Game of Thrones. That was my literal thought.
Like she is
Bix's
beating him with a hammer. He is bleeding from his skull, and he is trying to rape her. Like, she kills him with a hammer.
Bix's whole storyline I thought was very, very interesting, just because of how it was handled and the message they were trying to tell behind it. I just thought it was really nice and it was really well done. I mean, you don't get that from Star Wars, and so I was glad they took the bold choice and the bold step to tell a story like that. I also come on, I love Director Krennic. Who doesn't love Director Krennic? I loved having
Yeah.
him back in episode 1. I liked the whole oh god, what's their names?
The Gorman.
And
Are you
Shivel.
talking about the planet that they're
No.
who are you trying to talk about?
Shivel and who's the guy? It's the girl and the guy. Shivel and who?
No. You're talking about Cyril, who's the guy, and then Dedra, who's
Cyril.
the girl.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, dude.
Cyril,
Here's
who's
the
the
thing.
guy, played
I have a
by
hard time remembering her
Kyle
names.
Soller, and then Dedra, who's played by Denise Go.
I have a hard time remembering their names specifically. I just remember them as bad bad guy, bad girl.
Yeah.
But I really find the whole Empire story in this first episode, 3-episode arc, I think is really interesting because we've never really gotten anything like this from the Empire. I think
No.
the closest thing I guess is something that maybe Tarkin would have done. Like if you ever had a meeting scene with Tarkin, and that's it, and not even really like that. Like like it's just so different. It's a different side of the Empire, and I really appreciate that.
Well, because it's funny because you have the whole scene again with Dedra meeting Cyril's mom, and it's very much trying to humanize them. Like there's an entire half of an episode, practically, or I guess a quarter of an episode just dedicated to Dedra meeting Cyril's mom.
Yeah.
And you might ask yourself, like, why the fuck are we here? But at the same time, like on the first episode, you're seeing Dedra being presented with the moral dilemma of the essentially extermination of Gorman, the entire planet, so that they can mine it for minerals to lead to the infinite
Yeah.
power for the Emperor. And
Yeah.
you're seeing that aspect of her where she's talking and giving the plan in the sense of, oh, just like start the insurgents and have them destroy themselves so that we can come in there afterwards.
Sure.
But then you also have like, oh, we're actually trying to humanize her, and we're trying to like, she's not just a villain, she's a person too. Which is, I guess, again, it's an aspect of the Empire that we've never gotten before. Just like how we've gotten a lot of deep dives with characters from the Rebellion, because we mostly follow the Rebellion. So it's interesting to see the day-to-day lives and remember that while these people are evil from the Empire, they're also humans that
Right.
meet their in-laws and have these awkward dinner situations.
Sure. But all this talk about it is just reminding me the story we could have had with Cassian could have been much better. That's all I'm saying. Like we're talking
Yeah,
about
I
this and
mean,
we're praising this. You know what we're not praising? Cassian's story, because he sits on a planet kidnapped for 3 episodes. You would have
yeah,
thought that, and it's not like, where else he was kidnapped? In the prison with Kino and
yeah.
the
I
other
mean,
prisoners.
I definitely agree. Like, I really think that for a show being titled Cassian, Cassian's story is the weakest. But I think another one that we haven't talked about at all, or not at all, but we've only talked about small aspects, is we had another death. Like Pedro Pascal, Joel was not the only death this week. That was, I don't want to say, Brazo's death was not as big as Joel's death,
It was
obviously,
sad.
but
It was
it was
nowhere
still
near
sad,
as it was
especially
sad. It was
watching
nowhere near the
Vic's
same as Bilbo.
reaction to Brazo's death.
Yeah, Brazo dying was I think is the first sign. It's like the calm before the storm. Brazo dying is important because it's reminding us that nobody in this universe is safe, which I think
Yeah.
is something very similar to what Last of Us and Game of Thrones both do. Is nobody's safe. They try to remind you of that constantly, and I think it's smart. I love Brazo's character. I wish he'd obviously still be alive. That being said, if anybody was going to die, I'm glad it's him, because it's proving the idea of, yes, we're willing to kill important characters that you care about, that mean a lot to the story, that mean a lot to our characters. We're not afraid to do it, and it's going to lead to the calm before the storm, because we don't know what's going to happen. Is Mon Mothra's daughter going to die? Is Luthen going to die? Is Luthen's daughter going to die? There's like all these
I mean,
questions that you now have to ask yourself: is who other than Cassian Andor, and Mon Mothra, because we see them in Rogue One, who is genuinely safe?
I mean, I'm gonna call it out here. Bix is going to die.
Oh, Bix is
The
dead.
reason I
Bix is
say that
totally
is
dead.
because Bix is the love interest of Andor in the Andor TV series, and in Rogue One, she's not a love interest anymore. In fact, there's a different love interest for Andor, so that means that Bix is going to die, and it is going to suck, and it's probably going to happen in one of the last 3 episodes.
Bix
And
Bix is
I'm going
definitely
to
dead.
cry.
And that's why I'm saying it is
But
all the calm before the storm.
well, and I think
Brazos' death is the calm before the storm.
I really do think, and unfortunately, I do foresee that every of these 3 episode batches is going to be told very similar, where we are focusing on it, admittedly, in my opinion, too many storylines at once. But I do think that Brazos' death gives me hope that from now on, Andor's story is going to be a lot bigger and it is going to be better, because I think that
Yeah.
this is going to be a big turning point because now we no longer we're in, I guess maybe this is something that could be interesting, is what if every 3 episodes, how many storylines do we have right now? 4, right? We had in this 3 episode drop, we had Mon Mothra, we had Andor, we had Bix,
Bix
and we
and
had Dedra.
Sybil. Yeah.
So we have 4 3 episode drops. The big storyline has been consolidated into Andor storyline. We have Andor, Mon Mothra, and Dedra storylines left. What if every one of those 3 episode drops, we consolidate one of those storylines into Andor's story, all for that last 3 episodes to be probably, if I had to assume, Dedra and Andor being Dedra the Empire storyline mixing with Andor's storyline. And
Yeah.
say next episode, we're probably going to get the consolidation of maybe Mon Mothra's story with Andor, or probably Mon Mothra's story with Andor's. So that way
Yeah.
we have that consolidation of storylines, because
Yeah.
now we don't have to follow the Grain Planet anymore. Andor and Bix have reunited. Next episode, we might get Mon Mothra and Andor coming together and building out more of that rebellion in a, I guess, unified front.
I don't think Mon Mothra and Cassian are going to come together till after Luthien's dead. Luthien is the contact between the two, and I don't think we're going to see them interact until after Luthien's dead, which will probably be at the end of this next 3 episode arc. I don't foresee Luthien lasting longer than that, because we have to get the story along. Because there's also a whole nother story arc that we have to introduce that technically sets up Rogue One, which is Cassian and K2SO, which we have not seen yet. And that has to happen.
True.
And we have to have enough time with those 2 meeting. It can't just be like, at the end of the entire show, here's K2SO meeting Cassian. That can't be what it is, because in Rogue One, they have a bond and they have spent all this time with each other. We see that. So we have to be able to see, that in some form during the arcs.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably not wrong, or I guess you're definitely not wrong. We have to have the introduction of K2SO at some point in these episodes, and we don't know when that's going to be. We know it's going to happen, but I guess again, my hope is that what happens is all of these 3 episode arcs is the consolidation of storylines leading to it is just Andor, and again probably Dedra storylines being those opposing forces, because I think the penultimate battle, I guess, is set up to be the defense of Gorman.
Sure.
Because Gorman, for the power source, is what's set up to be the Empire's plan.
Yeah.
Because obviously we know it's not going to be something like the Death Star plans or anything like that. So it has to be something. And that is set up to be Gorman. And so that would put Dedra's storyline in direct contrast to Andor's storyline, which would lead up, I think, to a really good, like, penultimate 3 episodes. I just think that I'm hoping that this is the weakest of the 3-episode arcs, and since
It
we've
probably
already
will be.
consolidated one of those storylines down, I have a lot of high hopes for where the rest of these storylines are going to go.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. Hope is the word.
Yeah. You have anything else you want to talk about with Andor?
Not really. I'm very excited for the future of the show. I do think it's a good start. I just think that they definitely need to hone in a bit more on Cassian's story as opposed to everybody else's story. So
Yeah. Well, with that, since you're looking forward to that, we'll go ahead and transition into our last segment of what are you looking forward to? Anything? I mean, I don't want to harp on the same things we always talk about that we're excited for. Is there anything, I guess, new, whether that be nerd related or even just life related, that you're excited for this upcoming week?
I know that, like, and maybe we'll talk about this on the next podcast in like the what have you been consuming, because I do want to talk about it at some point. But I'd rather rewatch it in theaters before I talk about it, just so I can have the experience and get everything, because that whole experience is going to be so unique. But Revenge of the Sith is obviously coming back for
Yeah.
the 20th anniversary. I know we said we would talk about it, but like even now, I'm just like, I'd rather like get to the theater. I'd rather sit down with a massive crowd of people, you know, shouting at each other, "You turned her against me. You've done that yourself." I want to get the whole experience. I want to get the whole 9 yards before I actually talk about it. But I am very excited for that. I don't think Revenge of the Sith is personally the best Star Wars movie. I think it's really good.
Oh
But
yeah.
I do think obviously it's got the corny one-liners of the prequels, and you can't really escape
I
that.
mean, out of all the Star Wars movies, it is the one I've probably rewatched. I don't want to say the most. It is the one I've rewatched the most recently. Is
It's
Episode 3, not in
it
theaters, but I watched it at
yeah.
home with a friend of mine.
It's just purely because of the story, and I think seeing it on the big screen with the music swelling and the nice movie theater cameras, the nice movie theater like lenses
Screens, yeah.
and screens, it's all going to be really, really unique and just such a fun experience. So I'm obviously excited for that. Uh, all of the Star Wars Celebration stuff we talked about, with the exception, I think, of like a few of the games. It's really cool. I'm excited to see what they do with that. We had another Fantastic Four trailer drop. Sick,
Yes.
sick. It looks fire. And then obviously we all know what happens on Friday of next week. Big
I'm
Marvel
seeing
release.
it Thursday in IMAX. I already booked my tickets. So next week's podcast episode, we'll go ahead and say it here. It's going to be our Thunderbolts review. I am seeing it in IMAX. I've already booked my ticket. I think I'm seeing it at like 5:30 or 6 or something like that on Thursday.
Thunderbolts.
I
Thunderbolts has
think
been getting a
Carson's
lot of
seeing it
praise.
Thursday as well in IMAX.
Yeah, Thunderbolts has been getting a lot of praise, which I don't think I actually had a doubt that Thunderbolts was going to be bad. I always thought that was going to be really unique and a really fun movie, and it was going to be a great return to like a specific type of MCU movie, which is the fun banter between a group of people. But I'm really excited to see what they do with it and to see all these characters come together as what is technically, because even though Fantastic Four is the last movie chronologically before Doomsday, the last real movie in our universe of MCU characters before Doomsday. Like this is the last time we're gonna see somebody like Bucky or Yelena, or we're not probably gonna see him, but somebody like Sam Wilson's Captain America, like that specific universe, the 616 universe. It's the last movie set in that universe before Doomsday. So I'm really, really eager to see how they
So
set it all up.
yeah, I mean, I'm excited as well, but you know what's really funny? It's actually not the last property before Doomsday. It's also not what ends off Phase 6. We have one more Marvel thing coming out this year. Obviously, Fantastic Four also comes out after Thunderbolts before Doomsday. You want to know what comes out in June of this year that you have definitely forgotten about? That is confirmed to be dropping, I believe, 6 episodes on Disney Plus that we have gotten a trailer for. Can you guess? Can you remember what it is? We've gotten a
Oh
trailer
my
for it.
god. and I've forgotten about
It is
it.
a live-action Marvel property that it is very much coming.
It's not a film.
Premieres June
Because
24th.
I was stating that it was a film. It's not a film, right?
No, it's a TV series.
That's what I thought. Okay, well, if it's TV series, it's Ironheart, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Ironheart ends Phase 6. It has officially been stated that Ironheart is the end of Phase 6 of the MCU, which means that Fantastic Four kicks off the next phase of the MCU, which would be Phase 7.
Kind of insane considering we've gone 3 phases now without an Avengers movie, which I guess I understand because of Endgame, but still, that's kind of insane. I know it
I
hasn't
mean,
been,
that's not
you know,
true, technically, because we all know what that asterisk means at the end of
technically,
Thunderbolts. We all know what
technically.
the asterisk means at the end of it's the Dark Event. I had a friend ask me actually, that was like, "What's the asterisk?" I'm like, "Dude, it's Dark Avengers," and he's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yes, it's."
There,
We all know it's
yeah,
Dark Avengers.
it's Dark Avengers, and Dark Avengers are essentially Marvel's Suicide Squad, put in a nicer way because for some reason we can't put suicide in the beginning of
Well, and
a Marvel
unfortunately,
property.
because of the end or the Doomsday, like we already know that none of them die. We already know that they're all going to be in Doomsday.
Well,
We don't know if they
not
make it
all of
out of
them.
Doomsday, but
Not all of them, which also makes Thunderbolts a bit more like, oh, I wish they wouldn't have revealed that, even though we knew one character specifically was already going to die, considering they're not in the trailer a lot. It's just one of those
yeah.
things of like, I wish you would have marketed that a little better. But still, I mean, even still with that, people are having a blast with it. People seem to be giving it really positive reviews. So I'm very eager to see where Thunderbolts goes. I know I've been like, this was my most anticipated out maybe it was my most anticipated this year as far as like Marvel movies go. It might genuinely have been.
I mean,
Um,
Fantastic Four is mine. The second I saw it, I should say maybe it hasn't been the entire time, but the second I saw the Fantastic Four trailer, I have not stopped thinking about the Fantastic Four. I am so
I
unbelievably excited for Fantastic Four,
I
but
will say that
I have
trailer is good.
really high hopes for Thunderbolts. Really high hopes for Thunderbolts.
And then obviously I am excited to see where Last of Us goes. I'm excited to see where Andor goes. But I'm obviously very devastated at the loss of Pedro Pascal in The Last of Us. I've said my piece on that. Thank you. Take it away, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already hit on most of the things I'm excited for. I honestly, I'm really, really excited to watch One Piece weekly.
Sure.
I've seen one episode of the One Piece that's come back. I would watch one more again if it wasn't for the fact that, spoiler alert, it is 1:00 in the morning right now. I'm going the fuck to bed after we're done recording this. This episode is getting edited tomorrow. And then getting scheduled because I will be gone all weekend. But I am very, very excited to watch One Piece weekly. God, I love One Piece. God, the episodes that I've seen of the new releases are fantastic. One thing that I've been considering, and this is, I guess, it's not a what are you looking forward to, but I heavily considering getting a Steam Deck. So obviously, recently the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders went up yesterday. They were a mess. Many sites, including Target and Walmart, like completely crashed. GameStop's website crashed. People could not order Switches. It was laggy. It was a mess. I think all of it's been fixed now for the most part. I think they're all like sold out everywhere though. Ironically enough, the place that didn't sell out was if you went in person to GameStop. They had a limited quantity of in-person pre-orders, and those, because people forget that GameStop still exists, those did not sell out. But all the online ones are gone. So if you want to
Yeah.
pre-order Switch 2 still, go to your local GameStop and ask. But I think we already talked about I'm not going to get a Switch 2, at least not right away. There's just nothing that really gravitates me towards it. But since I already have such a large PC game library, I've had my eye on getting a Steam Deck for a little while. So
Sure.
I'm not saying that by next episode I'll have a Steam Deck, but I'm definitely going to be talking with a few of my friends about it because we've actually been chatting about it since the Switch 2 came out that we might all get Steam Decks. So that's something that if I do, I might start talking about video games a lot more on the pod because like I want to talk about all our nerdy stuff, and obviously we talked about like the Oblivion remake at the top of this episode, but like I want to play more video games. And
Right.
one of the reasons that I don't is because I have a very, very long commute into the office 2 days a week. And so I can't really, it eats up like my Tuesdays and Wednesdays are like basically shot. I barely do anything those days. I watch like maybe an episode of TV after getting home. But if I get a Steam Deck, I can play video games while I'm on the metro over there when I'm typically listening to podcasts anyway.
Sure.
So because of that, I've been heavily considering getting a Steam Deck. And if I do, I'm going to be talking about a lot more video games on top of what I've been watching on the podcast, which like, I think that's
Sure.
just something to look forward to because I just love fandoms and I love discovering new things. And I love video games. I just don't have a lot of time to do it because I'm so focused on the 50 bajillion anime and TV and movie shows that I'm watching.
Sure. Right.
But yeah, anything else you want to say, Carson, before we close this out?
I'm extremely tired.
Yeah, again, like I said, it is 1:00 in the morning. I know we had joked about this episode being a long one, but I think we both realized that, damn, we are fucking exhausted right now. So I'm going to go ahead and say thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what your thoughts are on The Last of Us or Andor or what's been released with Star Wars Celebration. You can find us, Nerdy Nimrods, on every single podcast platform: Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, other platforms that I don't even remember because no one uses them, but you can still find us there. You can also find us at Nerdy Nimrods on TikTok, YouTube, Shorts. We have a highlights channel where we post like highlights of our videos. We're posting our 3-minute reviews. I'm going to be doing my One Piece weekly reviews on the Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts. So like, if you like One Piece, keep an eye out for that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I have been Brandon, aka Parrotfish, here with
Carson, aka Juggernaut.
And stay nerdy.